helicopter is flying above the Syrian coast. The soldiers from the new regime roll a bomb out of the back of it. They're targeting fighters still loyal to the former president Bashar al-Assad. At this height, though, there is no telling or controlling where that bomb lands.
People from Syria's Alawite religious minority have been killed in the worst violence there since the fall of dictator Bashar al-Assad in December. The UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said it had received reports of revenge killings by the new government security forces in the coastal region. The observatory head said he expects the death toll to exceed 1,000.
The service says that the man brandished a firearm as an officer approached. A confrontation followed, and that man was taken to the hospital. His condition right now is unknown. President Donald Trump was in Florida at the time.
I was looking around social media today and it struck me that a lot of people who like to start wars are suddenly very angry with one guy who wants to stop this war. And there are people who have taken us into one disaster after another, war in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, who have spent much of today on social media attacking Trump. What we're seeing, I think, is a reset of geopolitics, a reset. We're seeing the breakdown of what you might call the international liberal world order, which saw 20, 30 years of one foreign policy disaster after another.
Sorry, guys. Hey, guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. It's Sunday, which means we're going to take it all around the world in this week's top world news stories.
And everybody in the UK is like, what's going on? They're early. And everybody in the United States is like,
what's going
y'all
on?
are
They're late. So we had daylight savings last night, which means we spring forward to the cruelty of... from the cruelty, I should say, of the American government. You do realize that we passed to end daylight savings.
We did.
But they couldn't agree.
They still can't agree
on which one to stick with. And I'm thinking to myself, can we just take a vote? Because most of us would choose to keep the longer daylight.
I would choose the other one. That's
Why?
the problem.
Why?
Because I just feel like it's the normal, natural way.
It is the normal, natural way, but I would still choose the
I
other
don't
one.
like that because I feel like it elongates us using in the winter. We get used to the extra light, and so if you're used to that extra daylight, then you're going to, and your like life is kind of revolved around that time schedule, then you're more likely to use artificial light in the winter.
I can see that.
And for longer.
I just like the more daylight.
Well, but then in the winter you're actually losing daylight if you think about it that way. Your hair looks really nice.
Your hair looks great too, but it looks a little funny. Let me fix it. There we go.
Yeah, I'm in the minority, but I think I'm in the minority of like the health conscious people because I don't want the extra. I've realized this honestly. I don't want the extra hour because it makes me, it does make me stay outside more. And for some reason, that like the wind down time is more now for me with light at night. Yeah. So I'm not winding down more naturally. So, anyways, I would like to, but it's 41 to 58%.
And what kind of percentage do we need?
No. I mean, like the people. The reason why we can't decide is like I think the people on the standard time have a historical argument. And the people with the, I just want an extra hour have the, I just want an extra hour
Here's
argument.
the thing.
So they can't decide.
I have an opinion on which one. Okay.
But you just don't care.
But I think most of us would agree that, like, listen, it's like it's Solomon cutting the baby in half. Don't cut the baby in half. If I can't have it my way, let's just at least get rid of it. I don't care which time we choose.
The rest of the world is fine without it. There's a lot of that don't use it. It's kind of American.
It was only for farmers, and they don't need it now. Okay, like not everybody is and we should go back to more farmers. But I'm just saying, All right, so we had daylight savings last night. For those of you that woke up and you're like, you guys look like you're really early today. We're not. We're actually late, according to daylight savings time. Okay, so if you didn't put your clocks forward, do so now. Now, for the world news, there's a couple of things that we're going to talk about that are not as serious as Syria. There was a shooting at the White House.
Yeah.
Or there wasn't well, actually, yes, there was a shooting because the Secret Service shot the guy. I don't know that the guy got off any shots.
So a guy who drove from Indiana and he brandished a weapon outside of the White House and he is still alive, but they had to shoot him.
Right.
Crazy.
So crazy. So then also, Trump is saying that the Ukraine needs new elections. Mm-hmm. I find that hilarious. And we may see Ukraine become one of the first nations to actually get sound elections if Trump's calling it out. Like, what I mean by that is Ukraine is so weak. Mm-hmm. Like, they are so weak. And if Trump is going to just kind of go in and bulldoze, like this whole idea of taking the Gaza Strip and turning it into a, condo, whatever, paradise, pushing yourself into Ukraine, forcing actual elections. Here's the problem that I have. I actually believe, call me crazy, I actually believe that Trump would want to have literal democracy in Ukraine. I'm still not convinced that everybody around Trump is on the up and up. So if you allow the United States to go in and give you fair elections, I still don't think you're going to get them. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. So we'll see. So there's that. And what's going on in Syria, I don't even know how to cover it with anything other than just anger isn't even the right word. Righteous indignation, mostly because we're responsible here in the United States. We are responsible, speaking of the United States, going in and doing things that they should not do. You have upwards of 1,000 Christians and Alawites that have been massacred. Like, not just massacred. Like, massacred is bad. Tortured and massacred in Syria. Every single one of those people, aside from natural causes, would be alive right now if Bashar al-Assad was still in power in Syria. Is Bashar al-Assad a great guy? No, he's not. But we're going to get into that and we're going to talk about it because there are ramifications when you play chess with the world. And that's what even Trump is doing. So we have to be very, very wary when Trump says, I want to buy Greenland. Wait a minute. Or he even wanting to take over what's going on in Ukraine or buy the Gaza Strip and take it over. We wouldn't even be buying it. It would just be taking it over. Wait a minute. We should not. Trump, watch it, guys, because Trump has an imperialistic demon on his shoulder right now. And it's not looking good for him. It's not looking good for the United States because he thinks that he has the answers and he's just going to force his way in to go doing things. When I look at El Salvador and I look at Nayib Bukele, that's his country that he's the president of, and he's bulldozing his way to making it amazing. Yeah. But he's doing it with the power of God. Even if Trump thought that he had the power of God, which actually I think that he does, now you're looking at the Crusades. Like, it's not, what I'm saying is, whatever Trump has in mind to think that because he's got all the answers, he should force them on the rest of the world, that's not how it works. And he's missing the prime directive from Star Trek Next Generation. The prime directive is that if there are other worlds that are not as advanced as you don't take your technology to them. Okay, you know what I'm saying? I don't go all Star Trek on everybody, but this has got to stop.
Well, if you would like to bring up, I don't know if you're going to bring up my tweets. We can start off with something that's actually just very nice that Bukele had retweeted that they are building El Salvador's most beautiful botanical garden, and they take you through. They're building steps, and they're going to build this beautiful waterway. And somebody's, I just want to go visit it like tomorrow, but it's not built yet, so it's going to be awesome. I love that they're turning their natural landscape into something that people can go and visit and enjoy. And Bukele is really transforming his nation into something that all nations, I think, should be. And I think that, our leaders tried, sometimes with our national parks, but I don't know, it turned into something that wasn't just like, oh, a nice botanical garden. We're just going to take over millions and millions and millions of acres, and very few people can ever go see it.
Right.
Check this out, guys. We're getting it rain-proof. Show you all the bridges that we're making down here. Getting this ready for rain season.
Okay.
Because if you guys remember, last year in the rain season, we get a lot of flooding here. This is the natural flow. So check this out. I have a little bridge here.
Well, that's
Show you guys
cool.
another bridge that we're making.
We've made a lot of waterways with rocks.
Uh-huh.
You know what I
5 more
love?
bridges are going in.
All of
Look at
these
this, guys.
native
How cool is
plants
this? So it stops washing away here.
look expensive because that's what they sell
Hey!
at the garden centers here.
Look at this.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Wow.
Whoa.
Hello.
Hello, buddy. Cool.
Very good, very good.
Very good.
Very good.
Oh my
So
gosh,
that's
so good.
that's just a cute little story there coming out of El Salvador. That was not everything's going to be like that for the rest of the show. So let's just remember what life can be like.
You know
and
what I love
they're
about this,
stealing
though,
from us
is that these guys seem genuinely happy. I think, and I
Yeah.
know I'm not wrong on this.
Yeah.
There is a spirit of joy
and peace
in that nation.
Yeah.
It's what happens when
Just-
your leader
Yeah.
and his cabinet
kicks out demons.
take the devil and kicks him in the teeth.
Yeah, I think it's a spiritual thing.
Bukele.
And I honestly, the stark difference between that, just kind of normal, everyday, happy-go-lucky, and then like what's happening around the rest of the world, I think it's because people don't recognize, you don't see where the devil is. And I was doing our business taxes last night, and it's such an interesting dynamic that everybody's just so accustomed to thievery, and we just do this thing. And especially they really don't want you to be an independent businessman,
Right.
because if you were an entrepreneur and you start to go do your taxes, you get very angry and you get very bitter, and you want to on the one hand, you're angry because they say that you're sending your taxes to Ukraine, or you're spending it on all these different programs, the DEI, and all the Doge cuts and everything like that. On the other hand, we know that they're not only taking that from us, but then they're also printing extras that's making our life even harder. Okay. And government is there to protect you from other people stealing your stuff.
Not to actually sit there and steal your stuff.
And the tax code in America is designed to be so incredibly cryptic and unsolvable, and so that you have to hire somebody. So it costs you, unless you become a slave to the system. Oh, don't worry. Here's one of their reliefs that they give you if you're an employee. You get excited because you get money back, right? Yeah. Okay. If you're self-employed, you're constantly paying those things, and then at the end of the year you pay, and it's just you're always paying, and it's a pain because it's like you're trying to navigate a system that doesn't make sense, and it's a monetary system. And I was kind of in that twilight sleep when you hear from God this morning, and I realized that I went through a bunch of scriptures on Ephesians chapter 6, with we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but rulers and principalities, and actually that word is heavenly places. And I'm going to get to somewhere. I'm laying the foundation, I think, because I don't want to just do the news on. You're going to see some rulers and principalities in high places and I'm going to try not to show you all the dead bodies. There might be some clips. They've killed over close to 1,000 people in Syria. The Alawites, which is a minority religious group, and Christians, they're in hiding. And with those dead, this is it's like the same thing that we were seeing at the massacres of Christians in Nigeria, where there's just a bunch of dead bodies. They cut their heads off. You're seeing there are just piles of body. They're going into communities because in Syria, there are people there who were kind of pro Assad. The Alawites aligned with Assad, and a lot of the Christians aligned with Assad
because he protected them against people that would do this.
Exactly, they did. So this is a religious kind of war. These are the Sunni Muslims. Bashar al-Assad was a minority sect of Muslims, and they fight each other. Is what they do. They fight and they kill each other. And dear Candace Owens, this is not because of the Jews. She's blaming everything on the Jews. She's like, we told you so, and it's the Jews. And I'm just like, if you want to blame Muslim terrorism on Jews, just stop. Just walk away, take your money and run. Okay? And that's what they're doing, and it's a very strange dynamic. And we're in the midst of something, guys, that you have, thank you, Lord. I have been under an incredible amount of I don't know how to explain it. Heaviness every morning since July. And they tried to fix my hormones. We tried taking some, there's some really great calming natural herbs. GABA is one of them. I highly recommend it. When you have worked things out and you're still feeling something, I tend to be one of those, I'm going to make a word up. I'm sure it's like cultish. I'm a Christian empath.
Seems like crying out loud.
So what it seems like, and this is not a healthy thing, by the way. It's not good. These empaths that feel things for people.
You know what empaths are? They're just people that really acutely match other people's energy.
So it's not healthy to stay in that place. And I have, I've had this a lot of times. Michelle will say to me, Leah, do you think this is you? Do you think this is something you're going through? And while on the surface there is stuff that, we are all going through and could be attributed to this for sure. I believe that the words that Michelle and I are getting and the uptick of evil. So I believe as the kingdom of God and as Christians have been praying and doing amazing things, what you're seeing is evil is being concentrated.
You said this on the show the other day. You talked about when you take a broom and you sweep everything into a pile, right? Christine Taylor was at our house, and we were getting everything ready for the pig butcher. And she was like, is there anything we can do? We're like, yeah, you can sweep the floor. And she started sweeping, and she goes, your floor masks dirt really well. As I'm sweeping this into a pile, I didn't realize how much dirt there was on the floor. But it's really true. Until you start sweeping, you don't really know what's all there.
Yeah.
So it is a mass concentration.
Yeah.
But that means that it's getting ready to go into the dustpan of history.
Yeah. So I want to encourage you guys. What I believe that we are the dustpan of history. That's pretty good. So what we just saw was Bukele. His country was as dark or darker than Syria is.
Oh, for sure.
His country was as dark or darker than the war in Ukraine and Russia. And I'm going to give you guys a word here. The problem in the Ukraine and Russia is selfish pride on both sides. The problem with the Palestinian war and Israel is selfish, arrogant pride, where people are not able to sit down and say, hey, God, what do you want? God, this is your land. What do you want done with this land? God, this is your Ukraine. What do you want with this Ukraine? God, this is your Russia. What do you want with Russia? God, this isn't my land. This isn't Palestine. This isn't Israel. This isn't the land for the Jews. This is your land. The earth belongs to the Lord, okay? And what Bukele did in El Salvador was he said, God, I want to make this country your country. What do you want done with it? Not what I do. Not what do I want done with it. Not what is the right thing, and then let's just make it happen, right? He said what Bukele did and what Melee can't do. I believe that I don't know if Callan is a Christian-esque type person in Romania. I don't know if he is of the vein of Bukele. I don't know if anybody is of the vein of Bukele. I don't know, because that man sat down with a bunch of Christians and they prayed in the spirit. And when they recognized it was a spiritual battle, and I believe they're spirit filled, I believe that they speak in tongues, and I don't think he tells people, but I believe he does. They prayed things out in the spirit, and God gave them a plan on how to rid the demonic strongholds. He said they were, and he actually retweeted out somebody who said, posted a clip of him with Tucker Carlson when he said, we were battling, there were witchcraft and Satanism, and they were performing witchcraft and skulls and all these things.
And they took it head on with prayer.
And he retweeted it a few weeks ago and said, this is absolutely true. This is true. We knew we were battling witchcraft. The problem is when you don't see it straight up, and you don't see that you're battling witchcraft, you don't really know which side to take. And when you see, like in Syria, when they're garnering civilians and they're pulling them together, and then they're just mass killing whole families, that's Satanism. What you see with the Palestinians when they did kidnap all these Israelis and they killed all these innocent civilians, and then they mutilated and strangled these babies and mutilated their bodies, that's Satanism. And if Israel turned a blind eye so that they would have a reason to go to war, then that's Satanism. Okay. And so we can only do so much on the outside to help these people. And, I do have an interesting clip before we go to Syria. I have a young Russian on the front lines. Now, I actually have some footage. I kept asking, where's the footage? Well, there's this guy, Lord Bebo, on Twitter, and he has footage in Russia, Ukraine, from a Russian perspective. So I know that it might seem a little slanted, and I don't want it, us to be portraying Russian propaganda, but I think we've heard so much on the Ukrainian side that it's okay to hear stuff on the Russian side without us getting, brought into some sectarian war here. But this is a young Russian on the front line, and he says he is here fighting Satan. You can have to read the subtitles.
Why are you here? Why am I here? Yes. Because I'm fighting against Satan. I'm fighting for my future, for my children, for my family, and for my people. For my land. So that we don't have here all of those LGBT and others. Who needs those? It should be so. There is a man and there is a woman. What is that propaganda like they have there? I don't get it. How do they do that there? A man dates a man? I don't need such interests here. It's not okay. I just love my motherland, my country. The government said that we have to go, so we go forward. And we always do so. Defend the land, which is since time immemorial Russian. If somebody thinks they can kick us out or infringe us on some human rights, or say that he owns that land, then he is deeply mistaken. It won't go like this. You've said it's the Krakow region here, right? Is this Ukraine or? No, why Ukraine is anyway Russia. Like Odessa is Russian as well, I think. Ukraine has never existed as a state. It's even called 404, like an error. They just trusted the fate of the country to the clown. But Europe, the USA, and NATO said Russia is an aggressor. Russia is an aggressor? Yes. They always say so. Who took Berlin? Who took Berlin? The Red Army took Berlin. Our grandfathers and great-grandfathers. Whose land was? Ours. And it will always stay such. And we will fight to the end. No doubts at all.
So that is really an interesting video, because in contrast to that, what you see in Ukraine is, I'm going to go through this. I think I wanted to show you a chart of how many Ukrainian refugees there are around the world. And if I can't find that one, I want to go to the Ukrainian men who say they are being held captive. So yeah, I think I'll just go to, let's see here. Lord Bebo here, Michelle. I know we jumped around a little bit. So remember we played for you last week a lot of the Ukrainian men being kidnapped? Conscripted. I don't doubt that there are people maybe being conscripted into the army, and I don't doubt that there are very strong Ukrainians fighting. But if there are Russians being conscripted, I haven't seen anything coming from that, so you can send that to me. But I am seeing this. So we are hostages. Recently, many Ukrainian feel the urge to speak up. There's hope for peace. I noticed it in my DMs. One such message from a Ukrainian man. As a Ukrainian, I can only hope that those mad will totally fail with their endeavors. This war shouldn't even start. Our government is a scam and war criminals. They lied to us until the very start of this massacre, and when it started, they continued to lie even more. We are their hostages. Trump is our only hope. I can't speak for everyone, but personally, I'm more afraid of Zelensky's recruiters than Russian soldiers. More from my inbox. Please save us. We don't want to die. Publish these videos. Please don't mention me. Make it anonymous from your account. We can't do anything. We are in Auschwitz, Ukraine. We only want peace. People don't want to die. All the world media is blatantly lying. Bring this to everyone. I beg you. Bring this to the U.S. leadership, or Zelensky will drive us all to the grave. Thank you very much for raising the painful issue of mobilization in Ukraine. We here in Ukraine for the third year have been fighting the abuses of the military recruiters. The situation is terrible. Some men do not leave home for years. Unfortunately, the European media ignore the systematic violation of human rights because it is profitable for them to deal with Russia than with the lives of Ukrainian men. Thank you so much. I am in Ukraine, and it's about time the world sees the Ukrainians do not want to fight. Greetings. I am from Ukraine. I live in Kiev. There is a lot of material about the genocide of Ukrainians, and in particular men who are captured and sent to slaughter. Trafficking in people and organs of dead soldiers is also in full swing. We need help in spreading this information. The authorities are simply destroying us. Many cities and villages are empty. The police fully support Zelensky's criminal regime. Hi, Bebo. I am Ukrainian and currently live in Ukraine. If I publish this video on my own behalf, I will have big problems with the authorities in Ukraine. Please publish this video. So those were the videos. Mobilization business. The SBU detained the chief psychiatrist of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on suspicion of corruption. He is the deputy head of the Central Military Commission, deciding on the eligibility to serve of conscripts. During the searches, the police found cash worth almost $200,000. According to investigators, he has become richer by more than $1 million during the 3 years of his full-scale war with a minimal officer salary. He bought assets for this amount, which he registered in the name of his family and friends without declaring them in the declaration. 3 apartments in Kiev and Odessa, a private house near Kiev, 4 BMWs of the latest models. Oles Druze has been detained. Ironically, he was previously detained for the exact same thing, 2 photos, 8 years apart. The same chief psychiatrist of the Ukrainian army, Ole Druze, who was detained for enriching himself with $1 million, was already arrested on corruption charges before. In 2017, he was also caught taking bribes, but then the case was closed due to lack of evidence. By the way, his wife and daughter, according to the 2016 declaration, had Russian citizenship. He is buying his way out with bribes he collected earlier. I think that, yeah. Yes, this is the Ukrainian war effort. So at least this is one angle of where this money is going. Now, this money is being wrangled from the families trying to pay their way out of being conscripted. So the conscription racket is atrocious and real and needs to be called out. Then I've got this crazy video, and Michelle will need to read the subtitles. So this is in Gaza, and this is what they think about Ukraine. They want Vladimir Putin to destroy the country and for the Gazan men to marry Ukrainian women. This is performed at a wedding.
Harden your heart, O Putin. Increase your attacks. Banish them to Palestine, and we will marry Ukrainian women. Also, we say to China, invade Taiwan. Also, we say to China, why don't you invade Taiwan? This way, we will smash the nose of the Americans who make the Israeli airplanes. Harden your heart, O Putin. Increase your attacks. So there's only men there?
Yeah.
It's like a bachelor party?
Yeah. I just felt like that was really weird.
That was very awkward and strange. And how nonchalant they were about it.
And things that they're talking about, like I guess it's a funny song, like that, but they're all dancing to it, and it's really weird. Like, what kind of mental state do you have to be in? Harden your heart, oh Putin. We'll take the Ukrainian women, and China, go invade Taiwan. It'll be fun. Like, it's weird. It's just weird.
Here's the thing. Everything is so confusing to me sometimes. Like, right when I think that I have it all figured out, and then you throw me something like this.
There is no right and wrong.
There's no right and wrong. And stop putting the United States in a category where we're on the right.
Right.
Okay, you can't just say, it used to be so great. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. It doesn't work that way. Sometimes the enemy of your enemy is also your enemy. Okay? And then that doesn't make your enemy your friend now. You know, like, there's just so much bad and so much evil going on in this world. You know, this is what I said the other day on, if you guys saw the little video that I did, a word from God, like, God has been pruning the people around even our inner circle. Mm-hmm. And I would say even as a nation, we need to be pruned. This whole idea of having allies, sometimes you don't.
Well, we supposedly we play all sides. And that's what you understand that.
Right.
So we are quote unquote allied with Israel. And then you have this whole group of people you've got the far really weird radical right and the radical left pro-Palestine. And they're pro-Putin. And it's just really weird. Here we have Kharkov Cemetery grew so much it's probably visible from space. So we do have some, maybe some proof of dead bodies. I don't know.
But here's the question. If we do actually have lots of people dying in Ukraine, okay, which I'm not like, okay, fine. Why hide it? Mm-hmm. And the answer would be, okay, they're ashamed of how many people they're losing.
Yeah, why isn't this on MSNBC? Why isn't this on CNN? Why haven't we seen?
At the time of the full-scale invasion, there were 3 rows of heroes' graves, and now these graves are probably visible from space. We have 2 such blocks. Our ally of fame is one of the largest in Ukraine. The price is bloody, no words. When you stand here with our fallen guys and girls, there is a lump right here and no words. There is the old, like the Pilgrims did. They buried all their bodies in a mass grave because they didn't want their enemy to know how weak they were. That to me would be the only explanation for why they've been hiding the massive loss. But if you want to make Putin look bad, then you would show it. So I don't know. It's very interesting.
So I'm going to play this over here. If you have heard any reports that the North Koreans are sending troops, it's possible that they are just seeing the Russia butts up against Mongolia, and there are Mongolian Russians, and this woman tells her story. This is not a North Korean. This woman is Russian, and she tells her story, and I just kind of want to play it because it gives a kind of a story of what's happening in the war from somebody's perspective. You can get your own idea of what's happening here. I mean, we just have no reporting, right? And you can see Putin's reaction. This woman is a medic, and her husband and her are both in the Russian army. And she hadn't seen her husband for a long time, I think a year. And then when she went to a town as a medic to pull bodies out, she was the one who pulled her own husband's body out.
In 2023, my husband decided to become a participant in the special military operation. With my husband, I also decided to follow him since I have a medical education. I am a doctor. He is a stormtrooper. So they stood up to defend their homeland. Due to the lack of opportunity to serve in the same unit, we did not see each other for more than a year, although the distance between our units was no more than 40 kilometers. And as a helper of the evacuation platoon, to my great regret, I had to evacuate the body of my deceased husband. That's how we met. That's how we saw each other. And that's how we both returned home. And with that, my task as a military medic was completed. Now, I have a great responsibility raising our children. And now, as a mother and a combat veteran, I wish all of us a speedy, peaceful sky above our heads, and victory will be ours.
It's not over.
Vladimir Putin, I'm sorry, she didn't reiterate herself.
That she herself pulled her.
That she herself pulled her husband out on her own. And for us, we all have difficult fates, difficult stories, but we decided unanimously that it is worthy of a state award to have willpower, courage in this difficult situation. Be sure to pay attention to it. He says, I agree with you.
So there's obviously pain there. There's obviously things happening there. So I just wanted to show you the reality. I don't get that same humanity from Zelensky.
Right.
I don't get any humanity from Zelensky.
No, he's just full bore, like, go ahead, like, I don't care about these people.
Like, and so I just, as much as Putin is a boorish dictator who makes probably very bad, disastrous, and harsh decisions, and he is not led by the Holy Spirit, okay? And maybe he is in a few things, but he's very much a dictator, okay? Yeah. However, if anything, he is like Trump, but I see a humanity there, and I don't think that he is acting in that particular moment.
So there's two different ways of looking. Well, there's multiple ways of looking at your country when you're a leader, okay? Ukraine is literally the most corrupt European nation that exists. Putin is for putting Russia first. Mm-hmm. And he will do that at all costs. Mm-hmm. Here's the problem with that. At all costs, including if there are people that oppose him within his nation, mm-hmm. he will do bad things.
He will kill them.
That's wrong. Yeah. That's wrong. I want to differentiate here. The difference between Putin understands that godliness and big families make for a great nation. Okay, whether he is a Christian or not, I don't think,
and whether
he
he's
is.
able to implement that,
and whether
or
he's
not.
able to implement it or not. But
It's
when we
more
look
like by
at
force,
when we look at Ukraine, they only know one way of running a government, and that's through corruption.
They only know-
And so it's
yeah.
not about making Ukraine great; it's about making the corrupt government officials great and lining their pockets. And Zelensky is willing to do that at all costs. So when Vladimir Putin says, I understand that to have a strong nation, I have to have a strong people who love our country, who love our government, who love, so he's still manipulating. It's still wrong. Yes, I do still kind of count him as a dictator, but one goes through a path that at least has a modicum of humanity to it, whereas Zelensky, that it's the difference between, like, even the mafia protects their own better than Ukraine. Ukraine just sees their people as completely expendable. They don't see them as human beings, or even as, I think about this all the time. If you have like a prisoner of war camp where they're actually supposed to do a job, like physical labor, it's going to be in your best interest to make sure that they're fed well,
Yeah.
right? And that they're healthy. And I'm not going to go there. But anyway, I'm just saying, when you're looking at Putin, he, at the very minimum as a dictator, understands that people have to at least be brainwashed enough to love him and to love their nation. And in order to do that, he's got to promote humanity,
So if you go to the next video right there, one right next to it, there is a thread on a pipeline operation. So Russian soldiers just made a very big leap. Russian soldiers congratulated women on International Women's Day. They were able to successfully ambush and sneak up the Ukrainian Ukrainian units after that difficult operation. The Russian fighters congratulated women from the underground, and so this was a surprise attack from the Ukrainian pipeline.
Our lovely ladies, we congratulate you on the 8th of March. From a pipe, we wish you all the best in the world. Stay always as beautiful like us, and all of you will be great. We love you. Honey, happy 8th of March. And he's calling out his family. Kitty, you too. Sparrow, happy 8th of March. Anyone else has something else to say? This whole Women's Day thing, if it has spread to the Russian troops,
You can scroll down.
This is ridiculous.
You can read that. Read the thing first, yeah.
The breakthrough to the rear of the Ukrainian armed forces via an underground gas pipeline was achieved by these guys. They achieved a breakthrough in the underground pipes of the Urengoy Pomery Uzgorod gas pipeline.
They went through an abandoned gas pipeline and they surprised a Ukraine attack here.
Okay.
Probably please don't read.
I'm not going to read the curse word. What do you say, boys? Where are we? In a pipe that leads to Sudza. Never would have thought. 12 kilometers down a pipe. What's there? A traffic jam or what happened? What do you say, bro? There's lots of curse words going on here. This is how we go.
Okay, you can just see it. We don't have to read it. I think there might be one more. Okay, maybe if it's just another video, I can read it. I can read an article on it.
Down here?
Yeah. So Russian forces on Sunday, just today, recaptured 3 more settlements in Russia's Western Kursk region. The defense ministry said part of an operation to evict Ukrainian troops holding chunks of territory 7 months after a cross-border incursion. The ministry statement posted on the Telegram messaging app following reports by Russian bloggers that Russian special forces had crept for miles through a gas pipeline near the town of Sudza in an attempt to surprise Ukrainian forces. The 3 settlements now under Russian control, according to the ministry, all lie north of Sudza. The Russian Federation's armed forces are continuing to rout groups of the Ukrainian army on the territory of the Kursk region. The earlier report by Russian bloggers on the pipeline operation appeared to be a ruse aimed at cutting off thousands of Ukrainian soldiers in the region ahead of the Ukrainian talks with the United States on a possible peace deal to end the war. Ukrainian troops seized 1,300 square kilometers of Russian Kursk region in August in what Kiev said was an attempt to gain a bargaining chip in the future negotiations and try to force Russia to shift forces from eastern Ukraine. Russia has been pressing its drive to regain control of the region with some success in recent days. Open source maps on Friday showed Kiev's contingent of Kurds nearly surrounded after rapid Russian advances. The lid of the smoking cauldron is almost closed, says the Dmitry Medvedev. On the offense continues. Yuri Poldovka, a Ukrainian-born pro-Russian military blogger, said Russia's special forces crept nearly 10 kilometers, 10 miles, along the inside of the 1.5 meter wide gas pipeline and spent several days in the pipe before surprising Ukrainian forces near Sudza. Pro-Russian blogger Two Majors said a major battle was underway for Sudza and that Russian forces had surprised Ukrainian soldiers by entering the area via a gas pipeline. A statement from Ukraine's airborne assault forces said that Russian soldiers had used the pipeline in an attempt to gain a foothold, but the Russians were promptly detected and attacked with rockets. The Ukrainian military's general staff in a late afternoon report said its forces repelled 15 Russian attacks in the Kursk region, with 6 armed clashes still ongoing. The Russian advances in 2024 and U.S. President Donald Trump suspending the policy on Ukraine have raised fears among Ukrainian European leaders. So
this is the unit that actually went in. And while Leah was reading all of that, I don't know if you guys saw some of the comments on the videos that I played from these guys. Like, they weren't exactly happy to be doing this. They were kind of cursing their command officers that told them that they had to do it. But they did take supplies. They did dig their way out. And popped up and surprised the Ukrainians.
So that was a big battle there. That was
I don't know. It was a big battle. There's like 10 guys.
I know, but whatever they did, it was a big deal. They were able to take the region back. Now we're going to shift a little bit to Syria here, and how this ties in with Russia is that the Syrian Alawites there's a video of them demanding protection from Russia. So they actually went to a Russian air base for help, and they came to Russia's Kaminim air base, Latakia region, and asked for help. In this region is where the fighting broke out. So these are just regular. The people want protection by Russia. The people want protection by Russia. And they're asking for help there from the Russians. And now we're going to see some of these, some pretty intense videos here. Syria, hundreds of mainstream journalists visited and reported about the infamous Saidania prison, where people were supposedly tortured, and I think they were coming out, and it was really awful. But none of the mainstream media are going to witness this genocide that is being reported. Where is CNN? Where is BBC? We are actually going to play some videos from mainstream media, but I don't know that they're actually on the ground. The next video here is I think this might even just be a screenshot. Thousands of Syrian civilians were actually let into the Russian airbase. The Russian army lets them take refuge outside as all hell has broken loose. The Turkey-backed HTS extremists in Syria are forcing Christians and other Muslim minorities to crawl on their hands and knees before executing them.
They were also making them bark like dogs. I don't know if this video has that, but we showed it on Friday's news that they were making them bark like dogs as well.
The scenes in Syria are terrifying. Islamist forces reportedly have official orders to kill anyone they consider an infidel on sight. Christian, Druze, Yazidis, and even Alawite Muslims are now facing genocide.
They're animals. This is animalistic, demonic behavior.
This is. I'm going to skip the next video because that's South Africa. I'm coming back. The Alawites, this is disturbing. A Shia minority on Syria are being ethnically cleansed by this Ahmed al-Shara's
Those are dead people.
Those are dead people. All right, so I'm trying to keep us away from any sort of problems here on for YouTube. And now here is a Christian in Syria begging for help.
Covering my face now because I don't want anyone to see my face, because if they see me, they will kill me. I'm from Syria. I live now in the city of Latakia. Please, please, please. The media is not showing you anything. The terrorists are killing everyone, children, women, teenagers, old people, just killing. There is more than 100 body in my. There is more than 100 body in my village now. Even in the city, they are just taking the children and the women and kill them. I don't know what to do with my mom and my two sisters. Please, you gotta help us. Nobody's talking anything about it. Not the social media or the TV channels. They are all hiding the truth. They are saying that they are killing the resistance, but this is end up 2 days ago. Please, you gotta help us. They have been killing people since 2 days until now. Hundred of bodies are thrown in the street, in the villages, and in the city of Syria. We are not allowed to go out of the house. They just come to the houses, take the people, kill them outside of the house, and take all the phones so nobody record or do anything. Please, you gotta help us. I have two sisters. I don't know what to do with them. If it's okay for me if I die, but not for my two sisters or my mom. One of them is a teenager. Please, you gotta help us. Nobody's talking anything about it. Human rights, United Nations, anyone, America, anyone, just please help us. You need to do something about it. The social media is not showing anything. Most of my relative people are dead in my village. There is bodies in the street. We are afraid for the little kids. There is nobody left. Like, we are being killed. All of us, all the Alawite and the Christian. For God's sake, if you believe in humanity, if you believe in any religion that you want, just please, you need to save us. You need to do something about this. The TV is not showing anything, not Al Jazeera, not any TV channel. They are all covering what's happening now. Until this moment, there is people coming from another cities from Syria, like Idlib and Hama and Homs. They are coming just to kill people. They are still coming until now and killing people randomly. Not women or children or anything. They kill everybody. They are demons. They are not human beings. And nobody is talking anything about it. I don't know what will happen to me in the next hour. Or please, human rights, United Nations. Anyone who can hear me, just please save us. You need to do something quickly. We are running out of time. There is no more Christian or Alawite to kill anymore. You need to save what the rest of us.
I think that's probably the most effective and heartbreaking video on the internet right now.
Yeah.
I would pray, and I mean this, that would get to Donald Trump. Here's what I will say and what I love about Donald Trump. And I mean this. I know you guys, I give him a hard time. If Trump were to see that video, his heart would be moved to do something. Like, that's just how Trump is. Like, that is how he is. And so that video needs to get to Donald Trump.
So the Alawite Muslims are what Assad was. They are a distinct ethno-religious group, a branch of Shia Islam. They have very unique beliefs and are often considered heretical by other Islamic sects. The Alawite sect is believed to have originated in the 9th and 10th centuries in Iraq and then settled in Syria between the 8th and 10th centuries AD. They were initially called the Nusayri after Muhammad ibn Nuzair, who claimed to be the intimate messenger of the 11th Imam Hassan al-Askari. They believe in the 5 pillars of Islam, but they place them in a more complex system. They maintain the belief of prophethood from Adam to Muhammad. They believe in the angels, the day of judgment. They also believe in the divine, they hold Ali to be the divine incarnation of God. The Alawites have a unique theological perspective. They actually, in reading the Quranic verses and the belief in reincarnation, and many of them actually celebrate Christmas and Zoroastrian, the Zoroastrian New Year. They also do not celebrate or fast during Ramadan, and their prayers are not conducted outside in the streets with all the mats, but privately in small groups, and actually not even in mosques. So they're just a very different kind of more peaceful Muslim, you would say, maybe, possibly. I got a couple more videos here, Michelle. This is Islamists in Syria are indiscriminately attacking and torturing civilians. They are targeting Christians, Jews, and Alawites of Syria. You got somebody riding a man like a dog.
This is where they had them barking like dogs.
Okay.
And then they killed them afterwards.
And then you can skip this one. Skip the next one. We'll come back to that. And then this one is the why are the media in the West ignoring this? And this is actual like.
Sorry, guys. Oh my gosh. That's gunfire.
Yeah, they were also throwing some bombs in. So I think I've got. I'm going to go to YouTube. Michelle, I'm going to have to go to YouTube history because I think when I sent you those videos, I sent them from my phone. So let's go to the YouTube history and bring up a couple on the massacre of the Alawites in Syria, the DW video. Just bring up, there's like 4 videos, and we'll just play a few of these.
We're going to pray this through because like we were talking about on Friday when we gave you a little sneak peek on this, that these are our brothers and sisters in Christ.
So scroll down.
And
there's 4 videos.
That means that we have the power to...
Down. There's 4.
I see them. We have the power to help them by the Holy Spirit through prayer. And that's really important to know. We're not watching this helplessly.
Right.
In time, historians will settle on a name for the ongoing sectarian massacre on the Syrian coast. But tonight, we will focus on the names and faces of those killed so far, according to their loved ones. The number of innocents gone down will end up being in the hundreds at least, but we're focusing on this town, Banyas, where some of the worst of the killing is taking place. And first, on one family. Yesterday morning, a group of fighters came to the Sadek family home. They are Alawite and known to have been opposed to Assad's regime. This is Faraz Sadek's last social media post.
We're all people. We're all one family. This Banyas market, and there's nothing to fear.
That sentiment didn't save them. According to their family, the fighters murdered mother Sahar Abdullah Sakhim and brothers Faraz and Faraz Sadek because they were Alawite. Today, their sister Rasha spoke to us.
My family opened the door for them because they didn't think their own countrymen would kill them. I was against the regime. My mother was against the regime. My brothers minded their own business. According to my uncle, they were asking, are you Alawite or Sunni?
She went on to say that the bodies of her mother and 2 brothers are still in their home. Rasha can't reach them. After an offensive by former Assad regime soldiers was put down on Thursday by the new interim government security forces, Sunni fighters, not aligned to Damascus, according to the government, then entered those Alawite areas and started killing civilians. This video, for example, shows a fighter roaming the streets with others. We can't show you what ends up happening here. Suffice to say, they are shooting people for sport. In a speech last night, President Ahmed al-Shara denounced the sectarian killings and said that those who took part in it would be brought to justice.
Right. Anyone who harms unarmed civilians or punishes one group for actions of another will be severely held accountable.
There's a lot of bloodshed to be held accountable for. This is Dr. Bassam Suba, his wife, Dr. Ruba al-Sheikh, and their sons, Haidara and Ward. Ruba's niece Hala told us that official government forces came to their house yesterday morning and then left. A couple of hours later, a group of fighters arrived and killed everyone inside the house.
My gosh. We lost contact with them around 1 p.m. We tried calling, but there was no response. At 2 p.m., one of their neighbors told us they were killed with gunshots. They were in the corridor and in the living room.
There continues to be clashes between government and pro-Assad forces along the coast. This video shows the bodies of 2 soldiers after an ambush in Banias. The death toll of militants, though, will be dwarfed by that of civilians. People like Faraz Sadek loved spending time with his nieces and nephews, a family now struggling to come up for air.
The Syrian monitoring group says more than 400 civilians from the Alawite minority have been killed by pro-government militia forces and their supporters. The pro-government militia are accused of storming villages in Tartus and Latakia and carrying out revenge killings, as well as looting homes and setting them on fire. The town of Banias was one of the worst hit. Over 200 fighters on both sides are also said to have been killed in these clashes. Well, joining me now is Dr. Reem Tukmani, who is the Syria Research Director at the London School of Economics. Thanks very much for being with us. This at first looked like a one-off. We now have 3 days of these concerted clashes, whatever the involvement of official government forces may be. This is serious, isn't it?
This is very serious, and it doesn't look like the new government has any way of kind of stopping these ongoing massacres. The number continue to go up. I mean, the last figure I heard from activists on the ground, we're waiting for it to be confirmed, is nearing 2,000, because we're just finding out today about the massacres who were committed yesterday in villages that were very difficult to access. This is like spreading like a fire. And
well, you seem to have actually answered the next question I was going to ask there. I was going to ask you, is the government unwilling in Damascus to stop this or unable?
They are willing, but they're unable. The situation where from day one, beyond their control, they pretended that they control all the brigades. They invited for a big victory conference in Damascus a few weeks ago, saying all the brigades now been dissolved and everything under their control. In reality, it's not. Many of the brigades who are committing the massacres, they're not originally part of SGS. They're part of other groups. But now, according to the government, they are in charge. So they have to be able to control them, but they don't seem to be able to. Also, they called many civilians to join the fight. So there was a popular call for people from all backgrounds to join in. And just people felt free to go into all these villages and commit massacres.
And it does seem on the face of this that we are, and you hesitate even to say this, dragging back into the old sectarian ways, the score settling, as we mentioned earlier. Is that your take on this?
It is, sadly it is. I mean, the regime built its power based on the grievances of the minorities, and now they're paying the price of it. But look, I was in Syria not a long time ago, and I spoke to so many people from Alawite background, and I didn't see one loyalist anymore. No one is sorry that the regime is gone. No one. And we have to remember, if the Alawites,
even in Latakia, even in Tartus,
I'll tell you something. If the loyalists, if the Alawites did not decide not to defend the regime would not have fallen. The reason Syria was taken over so quickly is that the Alawites decided, we're not going to fight for you. We have to remember this. But they've been completely excluded, thrown out of the army, out of everything else. The army was dissolved. All the mistakes committed in Iraq were committed again in Syria, dissolving the army, de-Ba'athization, excluding minority, no transitional justice, while building new security forces that are sectarian by design. So the minorities felt excluded, and now they're hitting back. The heads of these armed resistance could be ex-loyalists, could be criminal, but the base is a very frustrated community.
Indeed. Noting all that frustration that you outlined very clearly there, Nonetheless, you have to have a certain number of people and a degree of organisation to hit back. You've got to have the wherewithal, the communications. You've got to have the arms, and it's happening.
They've been organizing for a while. I wrote to this government and to many other governments 3 months ago, back in December, saying this is going to happen. We saw this happening. We knew it's going to happen. Unless certain steps are taken, policies are changing, this is going to happen. And
so you'll notice that she is not wearing hijab. And she's there just like as a regular Western-looking woman. But she still has communication with the very radical Islamist government that took over. And yeah, so she's trying to tell the government this is going to happen. They're going to hit back. And you have this sectarian war happening. So you have these radical Islamists that are everywhere throughout the Middle East. But then you have, and the question is who has more power? We do know that the West actually backed this overthrow of Assad, thinking that it was like some wonderful thing, but obviously it wasn't. Let's play a couple more.
You can
of these
overthrow
videos.
Assad, but it's just like the scripture that says if you cast out the devil and you don't have something to replace it, 7 more are going to come in that are even worse.
Yeah,
and that's what we're seeing here in this exact situation. They didn't have anything to replace it with. Let's go with this one.
Clashes. This helicopter is flying above the Syrian coast. The soldiers from the new regime roll a bomb out of the back of it. They are targeting fighters still loyal to the former president Bashar al-Assad. At this height, though, there is no telling or controlling where that bomb lands. Human rights groups say that dozens of people have been killed in 2 days of clashes, mostly in a coastal region heavily populated by the Alawite minority sect, once dominant in Assad's regime. It is the worst violence in the country since the dictator was overthrown. Sky News has located this video to an Alawite village near Latakia. More than 20 dead bodies lie on the ground, some with visible gunshot wounds to the head. In Latakia, extra security forces have been sent to patrol the streets. The administration admits that there have been some clashes, but insists the situation is under control.
We have sent very large reinforcements to maintain security and safety. Clashes occurred here in the Datu area and Latakia. All areas are being controlled, thanks to God Almighty. The regime forces present in this area have been eliminated.
Syria is now led by members of the Islamist group known as HTS. Its leaders once fought an insurgency and had links to Al-Qaeda, but they have now pledged to unite the country after 14 years of civil war. These attacks are the biggest challenge yet to their authority.
It shows that the current interim government inside Syria still doesn't have full control over those forces fighting to its side inside Syria, and that the newly formed Ministry of Defense and Ministry of the Interior, they still don't have full command on those forces.
Despite the recent violence, most Syrians remain happy, though, that Assad is gone. There is enormous optimism about the future in Syria, and for good reason. But the country is a volatile mix of different ethnic and religious groups with different views about how the country should be governed. If this violence can be contained, it will demonstrate the new regime's power. If it can't, and if it spreads, then Syria might be facing dark days once again.
I don't think, my opinion is a little bit different. I don't think that the interim government is really even trying to have a hold on this at all. I think that they are more than happy. They're going to want complete Sharia law in Syria. And that can't take place when you have the Alawites, when you have these minority religions. You do understand that there aren't minority religions in other Muslim countries. If they are, they have to be underground. It's very difficult to be a Christian in Iran.
Okay.
It's very difficult to go to church.
They do have minority Muslims.
But in Syria, no, but what I'm saying is...
You're saying...
In Syria...
Minority religions that are not Muslim.
Okay, you're right. Exactly. But
there's several sects of Islam and Muslims.
You're right. But what I'm saying is in Syria, the Christians were free to be Christians. Okay? In Iran, you're not free to be a Christian. They will kill you. And that's what they want Syria to turn into. Syria got to be too, liberal in the word like the Amish use, right? Too liberal for their britches, too open and accepting. And now it's being squashed. I truly believe that it's kind of like when we're looking at what's going on in South Africa. The government just says that they don't want these people to be doing everything, but doing all these killings. But if they really wanted to stop it, they could.
Yeah, from Zero Hedge, after several days of radical Sunni Islamist militants targeting religious minorities in Syria for mass killings, mainly in coastal areas, the mainstream media has belatedly begun to cover it. As the killings are growing to the point of getting too hard to ignore. Some correspondents estimated that there are thousands of dead and wounded, mostly Alawites, but also Syrian Christians among them. As post-Assad Syria unravels under the HTS Jolani, the death toll from 2 days of clashes between Syrian security forces and loyalists of the ousted President Bashar Assad and revenge killings that followed has risen to more than 1,000. A war monitoring group said Saturday, making it one of the deadliest acts of violence against since Syria's conflict began 14 years ago. The jihadis, which include foreign fighters as well as the ruling HTS members, in some cases are simply going into the homes of the non-Sunnis and massacring whole families. The terrorists haven't been shy about uploading their killings on the internet as well as in live streams. Men, women, and children, even babies, are being brutally murdered. You can see this is a family picture of a group. This is Karim Dawa, a Syrian dentist working in Iraq, was preparing for one of the happiest moments of her life. His engagement to Noor Isi Nizha, a 23-year-old pharmacist from Syria. Instead, he is now grieving her brutal murder along with that of her family in an unprovoked massacre. Last Friday, armed militants stormed Noor's family home in Al-Qusur, neighboring of Ben Ayaz, killing everyone inside. Noor, her sister Hazar, who also was a pharmacist, her brother, a doctor, and their mother were all executed in cold blood. Hazar's husband, Ali, was gravely injured and remains in intensive care. Their father, Issa, was the sole survivor, not by design, but by pure chance. He had traveled earlier to their ancestral village. All family members are Syrian Alawites. Karam spoke with heartbreak about the woman he loved. We were in love for 5 years. We were supposed to get engaged in a couple of months, but fate had other plans instead of celebrating a new chapter together. So that is unfortunate, just randomly killing women and children. I don't really quite understand the thinking behind that.
It's demonic. Yes, you do. It's just Satan.
Yeah, the Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said in addition to 745 civilians killed, mostly in shootings from close distance, just like boom, 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 125 government security forces members and 148 militants with the armed groups affiliated with Assad were killed. It added that electricity and drinking water were cut off to large areas around the city of Latakia. But instead of calling out the obvious ethno-religious genocide unfolding, the European Union had the audacity to issue this statement. The European Union strongly condemns the recent attacks reportedly by pro-Assad elements on interim government forces in the coastal areas of Syria and all violence against civilians. Very strange. But the truth has been summarized by a priest of the Eastern Orthodox Church, which is the predominant Christian faith of Syria and the Middle East. I don't know if that's a video of it. Probably not. As you see the unfolding tragedy in Syria, keep in mind, this is your tax dollars at work. This was brought to you by the U.S. government, the state of Israel, and Turkey.
You played this one already.
They said Assad was bad. This is what they replaced Assad with. Gruesome images of bodies piled up in the streets. Tulsi Gabbard was right once again. Tulsi Gabbard's warning of a terrorist takeover in Syria looks to be coming true amid reports that al-Qaeda-linked terror forces aligned with Syria's interim new president are being accused of massacring Alawites as well as members of the country's dwindling Christian community. At Gabbard's Senate confirmation hearing, she said, "I have no love for Assad or any dictator. I just hate al-Qaeda. I hate that our leaders cozy up to Islamic extremists, calling them rebels. As Jake Sullivan said to Hillary Clinton, al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. Syria is now controlled by al-Qaeda offshoot HTS, led by an Islamist jihadist who danced in the streets on 9/11 and who was responsible for the killing of many soldiers." So that is who they praised as leading the nation now. Latakia Christian man Faris is Kawa murdered by the jihadist terrorist regime. He was originally from a Christian village. You can scroll down if you want to see him.
Oh, I've just been playing this kind of video here.
Yeah, that's a Christian who was killed. And so far, Damascus has remained relatively quiet, but in areas where there are no media cameras, particularly countryside areas in Syria, the jihadis are going on a murderous rampage, and it looks like it's only going to get worse. There are whole families.
Oh, boy. Hang on. I think this is worth reading. They're singing. It's really awful, actually. Patience, O Alawites. With slaughter we came for you. They're smiling. Without an agreement. With slaughter we came for you. Without an agreement. He didn't give up his religions. All the soldiers have sold their souls to Allah. All the soldiers have sold their souls to Allah. Our leader bin Laden, O terrorizer of America, with the power of faith. And our weapon is the PK with the power of faith. And well, you get it. So that's
the Trade Center became a pile of dirt.
The fact that they sing these things.
That was him. That's the leader of Syria.
Yeah.
He sang that our World Trade Center became a pile of dirt.
And then here's one of these families that I think the news channel already talked about.
So the UK has lifted sanctions on 24 Syrian entities, including the central bank, in a landmark move that could be a turning point for Syria's devastated economy. Britain has become the first country
I wasn't even screen sharing. Sorry,
to
guys.
unfreeze all assets of the central bank of Syria. The state airline and state-owned oil companies are amongst the other previously sanctioned entities removed from the sanctions list on Thursday afternoon. This approach underscores our commitment to help the people of Syria rebuild their country and economy, including support for a Syrian-led and Syria-owned political transition process. So they had sanctions on Assad, but not on this government, led by an actual terrorist who praised the bombing of the World Trade Center.
Wow.
Wow. That's right. Wow. Wow is wow. Wow is definitely wow. Back just to round off the story about Ukraine with the Russians' curse there. We can't stop them. Thousands of Ukraine troops suddenly faced encirclement in Russia's Kursk region. You can see maybe a picture of the map here, give you a better idea of what we were talking about earlier. The fuse has been burning slowly, but Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's risky August invasion of Russia's Kursk region is about to blow up in his face in spectacular fashion, as thousands of Ukrainian soldiers are suddenly in imminent peril of being encircled. According to open source intelligence analysis, the crisis comes as Zelensky is under increasing U.S. pressure to reach a negotiated end to the war, and a loss of captured Russian territory promises to make this already deteriorated bargaining process even weaker. According to the Deep State Map Live, an interactive map of the war run by Ukrainian military bloggers, their country forces in Kursk are nearly cleaved into two, with roughly 3/4 of Ukraine's forces in Russia almost entirely surrounded on Friday. Their last connection between the two forces was a kilometer long and under 500 meters wide. The Black Book Group military analyst summed it up for Reuters. The situation for Ukraine in Kursk is very bad, and there is not much left until Ukrainian forces will either be encircled or forced to withdraw. And withdrawal would mean running a dangerous gauntlet where the forces would be constantly threatened by Russian drones and artillery. Ukraine's Kursk gambit, which surprised the world, was, as we talked about, tried, let's get some land, let's bring something so we can bring something to the table. In late February, Russia's defense ministry said its forces had regained control of about 64%, and now probably the rest of it. Says you can't just leave Kursk region like that. The FPV drone operator from the VTW unit of the Rubicon Center destroys a Finnish APC of the Kiev forces while it was crossing the state border.
Oh, dear God. That's like a camera on a missile.
That's a camera on a missile. Road of death for Ukraine out of Kursk. The highway of the Syria to Sidaza is the last road for Ukrainians out of Kursk. Their foothold has now shrunk to 20% of its original size. The route is under complete fire control of the Russian army. And as predicted, it is a catastrophe. Wow. Some of the bleakest assessments of Ukraine's cursed position are coming from Ukraine's own officers. It's true. We can't stop them. They just sweep us away, advancing in groups of 50 North Koreans. I don't believe they're the North Koreans, but that's what they're saying. North Koreans, while we only have 6 men on our positions. While the situation is sadly desperate for conscripted Ukrainian soldiers ordered into Russia pursuant to Zelensky's gamble, some creative types can't resist lampooning Ukraine's desperate situation. All joking aside, can we finally end this hopeless war? Can we just finally end this hopeless war? And that Donald Trump is no stranger to harsh words. But I want you to I'm going to find my clip with, or my tweet with Donald Trump. Would you play George Galloway here real quick?
If you look at that X vote, so 6,350 people voted on X. 8% of them said they support conscription for Ukraine. So it's a small percentage, but it's a big number. So 10% would have been 635. So let's call it more than 500 people on X support conscription for Ukraine. So your country needs you. Where's your tin hat? Get your bag, get your gun, and go. Why don't you? Gutless cowards.
Exactly. So SDF says, ambiguous questions in these times, George. Do you mean conscription of Brits to go to Ukraine, or just dragging Ukrainian people into vans while they're walking their little dog like little Zelensky is doing already?
Well, as you know, neither you nor me draw up these polls, and there is an ambiguity there, but it might actually be a deliberate ambiguity. I don't support the brutal conscription of Ukrainian youth. I say youth, they're about to reduce it to 14. There's a bill before the Rada now to reduce the conscription age in Ukraine to 14, and it's already 18 to 60. So it'll be 14 to 60. And you know the reason for that? There are millions, 9 millions of Ukrainians living, many of them living the life of Riley, outside of Ukraine, demonstrating for your son to go and fight in Ukraine while they are draft dodging in your country. Go figure.
That's good from George. We haven't heard from him in a minute. So
I'm going to play, well, I don't know if I'm going to play this. I'm not going to play that. Okay. So it seems like the Trump administration is talking to Zelensky's political opponents in Ukraine to find a key figure. A top Trump allies hold secret talks with Ukrainians, Zelensky's opponents, so that they might be able to find somebody who's more willing to go to go with Putin's demands, so that they can boost them to an early election.
Well, and that's what Trump is saying. Trump is looking at just getting rid of Zelensky altogether. Did you retweet that, or
no? That's not what I wanted to play. Would you like to describe the video that I just?
Why don't you pull it up, and I will show them a screen share of it so that they can get the visual when I describe it.
Okay.
Did you retweet it?
I actually just bookmarked it because I wasn't sure.
How do I find a bookmark?
So I will retweet it. I'm going to retweet it. Oh my gosh.
So Leah, while we were listening to George, Leah stumbled across this video.
Yeah, I was trying to find
a very young Zelensky. Now, here's my question. How is it possible that so many of these, there you saw, oh, I didn't mean to actually click on it. I'm going to just skip through it. There are fake breasts that they keep moving. They must have like Velcro on them, and they keep moving them and putting them on various parts of their body and shaking their behinds. Zelensky and these 2 other dudes. Now, that's all we saw of it because I can't stomach it again. However, my question is this. The videos that Zelensky has done seem to almost exclusively be pornographic comedy, right? Like, his career is a pornographic comedian. And I guess I just kind of like, everything comes back to Trump for me. I'm sorry. But I'm looking at Donald Trump and I'm thinking to myself, you really thought even 4, 5, 6 years ago that you could have a serious relationship with a country that has this man as its leader. Mm-hmm. Okay? If America ever had a former pornographic comedian as its leader, I would not expect any nation to take us seriously.
He's gay.
How is it that there are just countless videos that keep surfacing? These videos that we've played, they're not one-off videos.
Right.
This is who he is.
The U.S. and Ukrainian officials prepared to meet in Saudi Arabia this week. Donald Trump has privately made clear to aides that a signed minerals deal between Washington and Kiev won't be enough to restart aid and intelligence sharing with the war-torn country. Trump wants the deal, which would give the U.S. a stake in Ukraine's mineral resources, signed. But he also wants to see a change in Volodymyr Zelensky's attitude towards peace talks, the official said, including a willingness to make concessions such as giving up territory to Russia. Trump also wants Zelensky to make some movement towards elections in Ukraine and possibly towards stepping down as his country's leader. Elections in Ukraine have been paused under the country's constitutional provision for martial law, which have been in effect since 2022. As President Trump demonstrated by reading Zelensky's message at the joint session, the Ukrainians have made positive movement with meetings in Saudi this coming week. We look forward to hearing more positive movement that will hopefully ultimately end the brutal war and bloodshed. I'm just wondering what is neutral about Saudi Arabia in all of this. Seems very strange. Americans can no longer tolerate European entitlement. Europeans do not respect Americans. You can protest and say, no, 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 we love America, but you don't. We know you look down on us. You think you're better than us. And in some ways you are. You know, you work 35 hours a week. You take long vacations. You've got this magnificent culture, and we get it. But any relationship in which one side doesn't respect the other can't last. It's this thing where Ukraine comes to the White House and acts like it can tell us what we should do. That's not what a relationship is. And the thing where somehow we're on the hook, including the countries that are not in NATO, that was never the deal. Ukraine is not part of NATO, and we were never obliged to protect Ukraine. Maybe that was something that Europe wants to do, and that's great. Go Europe. Europe should go protect Ukraine. We have no NATO agreement with Ukraine, and this thing where Zelensky then goes and quotes all these other European leaders, they're with me, just not the United States. Okay, go work together. We have 100,000 Americans being killed by the Chinese and Mexican fentanyl and methamphetamine mafias every year. Our kids are not learning to read. We have thousands of veterans with PTSD and are hurting. We have been at war in the Middle East for a quarter of a century. It's been 80 years since we bailed out Europe. You're on your own you have your own militaries. And so that's just an interesting, it's time to grow up. Europeans, you need to start to take care of yourselves is the sentiment there. But Ukraine says that they already kind of have Article 5 guarantees from some NATO countries. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni made headlines after suggesting that NATO's Article 5 should be extended to Ukraine, even if it doesn't formally join the bloc. In her words, extending the same coverage that NATO countries have to Ukraine would certainly be more effective while being something different from NATO's membership. What she didn't mention is that Ukraine already kind of has these guarantees. They were agreed with Italy, the U.S., UK, France, Germany, and Poland, and others throughout the course of the past year. Which readers, you guys know, it's just kind of that's where we're at. This is essentially the same as NATO's Article 5, which obliges members to assist those of their allies that come under attack, albeit as each of them deems necessary. Although the use of armed forces is mentioned, it's ultimately left to individual members to decide whether to employ this option. Ukraine has arguably enjoyed the benefit of this principle for the past 3 years, despite not being a NATO member. Considering that Article 5 always left the option of armed forces up to each individual member, which remains the case with each of the bilateral security guarantees. So we already are fighting this war, and, you know.
But that's ending. Like, Trump is not. Yeah. Trump's done.
This is the chart I wanted you guys to see. This is the number of refugees around Europe. And Germany has 1.2 million. Russia actually has 1.2 million. Poland has 1 million. And this has great strain on these different nations where they are going, and they're given housing, they're giving medical care. And let me just explain to you, none of that is they're all operating on the fiat dollar. It's not real money. If it was real money, they couldn't afford to have these refugees there and pay for their medical care and housing and things like that. All right, you guys want some interesting news? Let's move on from the war. Federal judge has imposed a $24 billion judgment against China. To see the chart. Yeah. For COVID cover-up as Missouri moves to seize asset. This is pretty crazy. I was like, well, what is this judgment going to do? It's a U.S. judgment, but actually they can.
Let me.
Did you close it out?
I don't know. Is this it?
No. What's one?
No.
Okay, you lost the chart.
I think I might have closed it. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I apologize.
A federal judge in Missouri has found that the Chinese party, the CCP, covered up the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic and hoarded protective equipment, costing the world precious time and lives. Now, Missouri officials are vowing to go after CCP assets. Judge Stephen Limbaugh Jr. on Friday ordered China to pay a staggering $24 billion for their role in the disaster, a ruling that could pave the way for Missouri to seize Chinese-owned assets, including farmland. This is what I'm all about. Yes, more of this, please. The lawsuit filed by Missouri Attorney General's office April 2020 during the early months of the pandemic accused the Chinese government of withholding information about the existence and spread of the virus and then cutting off the supply of personal protective equipment, PPE, from the rest of the world. Chinese officials said Friday that they did not accept the judge's decision. Limbaugh wrote in his decision that China was misleading the world about the dangers and the scope of COVID-19 pandemic and had engaged in monopolistic actions in hoarding PPE, which hampered early response to the pandemic. The ruling in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Missouri imposed the judgment against China, the ruling CCP, local government in China, and a Chinese health agency, and Wuhan Institute of Virology. Limbaugh, a Bush appointee, had initially dismissed Missouri's lawsuit, only to have it returned to him by an appellate court, after which he held a bench trial in January at the federal courthouse of Cape Girardeau in Missouri. China did not show up to the hearing. According to the Missouri Attorney General, Andrew Bailey, the ruling held China accountable for its actions. China refused to show up to court, but that doesn't mean they get away with causing untold suffering and economic devastation, Bailey adding, we intend to collect every penny by seizing Chinese-owned assets, including Missouri farmland. The Chinese government is crying foul. The so-called lawsuit has no basis in fact, law, or international precedents. China does not and will not accept. If China's interests are harmed, we will firmly take reciprocal countermeasures. It remains unclear how or when Missouri might start grabbing Chinese assets, but Bailey has made it clear he isn't bluffing. His office has suggested turning to the Trump administration for help and identifying Chinese-owned property that could be seized to pay the massive judgment. Missouri has already been on the forefront of efforts to curb Chinese land ownership in the U.S., and we do know that Sarah Huckabee Sanders in Arkansas is doing the same thing, with state lawmakers pushing restrictions on foreign adversaries buying American soil. Bailey's new push could escalate the battle, potentially setting the stage for a historic legal fight between the Show Me State and Beijing. Foreign governments can be sued in American courts, though the circumstances under which those lawsuits can proceed are sharply limited by a measure known as the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. In his early dismissal ruling, Judge Limbaugh said that Missouri's lawsuit was unable to move forward because of that act. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the 8th District said one of Missouri's claims about the hoarding of PPE was not excluded by that act and sent the portion of that case back to the district court. Former Attorney General and now Senator Eric Schmidt took a victory lap on social media after the ruling, declaring, when I was AG in Missouri, I sued China for unleashing COVID on the world. Missouri can now seize assets. This unprecedented case marks one of the largest legal judgments ever against a foreign government over a global crisis. While China is unlikely to pay up voluntarily, Missouri's push to enforce the ruling through asset seizures could shake up the U.S.-China relations. While this is nice and all, when are U.S. institutions involved in the offshoring of gain and function research in Wuhan going to be held accountable?
That's such a great question.
Very good question.
You know, it brings it back full circle for me. You know, for those of you that don't know, Leah's birthday's in 2 days. And in the United States here, the pandemic was declared on your birthday. Which is so interesting. March 11th, 2020, officially. And
yeah,
so
we're
here we are coming up on
our
a
5-year
anniversary. And so for the Missouri AG to get this win it has broader implications than just the COVID ones. Again, going back to the land seizures and taking assets, I guess my concern would be, I hope that the Trump administration doesn't try to do anything to hinder this by saying, if you pursue this, then we will have to back up a war with China. Here's the thing. When you want to talk about NATO and allies and all of these things, the United States, for those around the world, or maybe you live here domestically and you don't know this, we are the United States, which means that every state in our nation is supposed to be its own sovereign place. Okay. And we are kind of the size of Europe in a sense. Like, we're not as big as Europe, but I'm just saying a lot of our states are the size of states in Europe. Okay. Or countries in Europe. Like Ohio is the same size as the UK.
You can bring this up if you would like people to do a COVID-19 day of reflection.
Sure.
Day.
So my point is that, here, you can find it while I'm talking.
Okay. Are you screen share yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
My point is that if we're supposed to be an ally of anyone, it has to be the decisions of our own states, attorney generals and governors. So if Missouri is pursuing this, the federal government should not become the enemy of the state of Missouri when the state of Missouri has won such a huge battle here. So I'm just saying, let's pray that if they do pursue, assistance from the Trump administration, that it doesn't backfire.
Yeah, because Trump could say, well, we don't want to make relations with China,
uneasy.
Uneasy. So we may not want to do that. So I see what you're saying. Like, let's make sure we see this through is kind of what we want to see happening. So that's...
Are you still looking for that thing? Because there was one that I accidentally closed, and that might have been it. Because there's not very many Twitters up. And I think it was down here on the end with this one, wasn't it?
I'll just retweet it.
Okay. Do we need this one still?
No.
Okay. All right, let's screen share.
So this is a COVID-19 Day of Reflection. Mass formation psychosis. You can read some of those if you want.
Blood clots, myocarditis death, misinformation, child education decline, breakdown of trust. They tried to crush dissent. Government turned society against itself. Fauci lied. People died. Guillain-Barré syndrome. Civil rights infringed. Groupthink. Government alert message introduced. Rule of 6, then 9 had no basis of evidence. Government became more emboldened in authoritarianism. Greatest transfer of wealth from poor to rich in history. Emergency use authorization. Bypass safety testing. MHRA. I think that means mRNA. Switched from being a watchdog to an enabler. Magic arrows, one ways, and spots. The dangers in trusting experts. Accountability deficit. Rushed and untested gene and cell therapies. Safe sitting down, but standing was dangerous. Government partied while we were locked down.
Yeah, let's not forget the masks. A lot has happened in the past 5 years, and I do believe it doesn't actually
feel like it's been 5 years. I'm going to be honest. I'm still bitter about it. I was like, it was just last year, but so much has happened. And what I love about, this kind of thing, they're saying March 9th, it was the 11th. But this is today. It's fine. Never again is not just about this stuff. People are, I truly believe this. Now, so many more people have been awakened that they're much more wary when something new or authoritarianism comes their way. Whereas before, because of the public school system, we have been trained to just trust the government, trust the experts, and obey. And that's gone. They've lost that. They've lost that hold on the people.
1984, hundreds of people in the UK have been charged under the 2023 Online Safety Act that I believe came about through COVID as well. 292 people in Britain have been charged with speech crimes under the Online Safety Act passed into law by the previous Tory government. Those charged include 23 for illegal false communications, often referred to as fake news. The controversial clause banned the spreading of so-called disinformation that could lead to non-trivial psychological or physical harm. The conviction under legislation comes with a maximum penalty of 51 weeks in prison. The report found that several were charged with the offense following the mass stabbing attack at a children's Taylor Swift party. After initial silence from the police in the aftermath of the attack that left 3 young girls dead, it was later revealed that the attacker had been born in the UK to migrant parents from Rwanda and had possession of Islamist jihadi material. Since 2023, at least 67 people have been convicted under speech codes, the first of which came in the wake of the anti-mass migration riots and protests following the Southport stabbings. At the time, the leftist Labour government faced criticisms for freeing prisoners to make room in Britain's overcrowded jail system for people who made posts online. And they didn't even refer to violence. This is... we will not let the internet serve as a haven for those seeking to sow division and harm in our communities. That is why we are taking decisive action. The false communications offense, introduced in January 2024, reinforces this approach by targeting those who knowingly spread false information with intent to cause significant harm without reasonable excuse. Of course, it's, J.D. Vance called them out for that. What is also disturbing, if you bring up this Twitter first here, is that under a new guidance, prison sentences in the UK, if you are ethnic or from faith minority communities, will be charged less than if you're white.
Turning to the new sentencing guidelines that's been published alongside this statement, which will make a custodial sentence less likely for, and I quote, ethnic minorities, cultural minorities, and faith minority communities. Why is the Justice Secretary enshrining this double standard, this two-tier approach to sentencing? This is an inversion of the rule of law. We on this side of the House believe in equality under the law. Why doesn't she?
That's good.
It's very strange, and you can go to the left there and just play a little bit from Patrick Christie on this.
Is Britain's legal system now officially anti-white, anti-Christian, anti-male and anti-heterosexual? Today, every magistrate was sent this email. It told them that there were new sentencing guidelines that they should enforce when considering sending someone to prison. That seems to enshrine two-tier justice into law. Potentially one sentence for white, Christian, straight men and one sentence for ethnic minorities, cultural minorities and trans people. You can see it here in black and white. When deciding on sentencing, the magistrate should take into consideration if the guilty party is, and I quote, from an ethnic minority, cultural minority and or faith minority community. I mean, why? What does that mean? There are two explanations for this, in my view. One, this is the bigotry of low expectations. Oh, because somebody is an ethnic minority, they're less likely to be able to understand the law. They must have had a harder life. Absolute load of rubbish. The second, straight up, anti-white racism. You'll notice that the judge should also take into consideration if somebody has disclosed they are transgender. Again, why? Are they less able to understand the law? And another thing you'll notice, judges are being told to take into consideration whether or not offenders say they are victims of human trafficking. Well, what does that mean? Well, every single illegal migrant who commits a crime will try and get a lower sentence by claiming to be the victim of human trafficking. Shadow Justice Minister Robert Jenrick, who's actually on my show later tonight, raised this in Parliament.
Why is the Justice Secretary in...
I don't really understand this, to sentence people based upon their race or religion.
It does make sense, though.
But it's
like, it
such
makes sense
a far
for them.
left policy.
This is where they have been headed the entire time. This is where the woke agenda gets you.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for everybody in the UK. I love y'all. You're my brothers and sisters. However, I'm glad that it hits you guys first so that we can do things to stop it from actually getting here, because we are often on the same trajectory as you guys are. In these matters, you're just there first. You know, it's like, fashion from the West moves to the East. this is right in keeping with, I wouldn't expect anything less, because why even say, it'll get to the point where it's like, well, you can't even punish me at all. We see that. And actually, let me take back what I just said. We are already seeing it in the United States, because look at the sanctuary cities. Now, Donald Trump's taking it in hand, but you look at the sanctuary cities for the illegal migrants, they can do any of these crimes and they don't get punished. It's the same thing.
I wonder about this guy here. Is he a white guy? This is an Instagram. Emergency services were called because a man climbed Big Ben in the UK in support of Palestine and a friend who was arrested. So this happened yesterday. And
Big Ben in London while waving a Palestine flag in support of Palestine, and also his friend who shut down an Israeli arms factory before being arrested. So he's protesting for their freedom as well. Police are trying to organise a safe conclusion for the man to come down, and they're sending rescue teams to go and talk to him. I don't know what happened.
I'm so impressed.
Yeah.
He was recording it. I'm so scared. I don't even care about your Palestine flag. I got to give you props for being able to even do that. To even, like, that's insane.
Well, and then a friend that was arrested for shooting an Israeli.
Okay, well, the gun thing is not so funny, but that was...
All right, so let's play this next clip here that Barry sent.
And it struck me that a lot of people who like to start wars are suddenly very angry with one guy who wants to stop this war. And there are people who have taken us into one disaster after another, war in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, who have spent much of today on social media attacking Trump. What we're seeing, I think, is a reset of geopolitics, a reset. We're seeing the breakdown of what you might call the international liberal world order, which saw 20, 30 years of one foreign policy disaster after another. And Trump, you know, I was at the inauguration in America, and people around the president are basically saying, you know, they've had enough of that constant interventionism. They've had enough of Europe, by the way, again, maybe a controversial point, but Europe not paying its way on defence. And they've looked to Germany, they've looked to France, they've looked to Italy, they've looked to the UK, and they said, you know, what are you guys doing? You know, take Germany as an example. Germany under the Greens, absolutely bonkers, becoming more dependent upon Russia because of its ridiculous energy policy, becoming more dependent upon China, and then turning around and criticising Donald Trump when he says we've got to end this war. I mean, I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense anymore. There are two things that need to happen. One is, Ukraine obviously needs to be involved in the negotiated settlement, that's obvious, but the second key point is this now has to be a line in the sand. After this negotiated settlement, Europe is going to have to pay to defend itself. We cannot just rely on America, because understandably they're saying, look, we've got China, we've got our problems on the border, we've got to revitalise our economy. So I think for everybody who sat there criticising Donald Trump, I do think we need to look at ourselves in the mirror and think, actually, are we getting this right here in Europe?
And to the point that...
I was looking around...
So, I've got a couple more Instagrams that he sent. I know they're kind of hard to play, but Maloney did suggest she wants peace. So she said no Italians will go to Ukraine.
Italy just sent shockwaves through Europe, declaring they're done with Ukraine and prioritizing peace over escalation. When France and the UK pressured Italy to send troops, Italy's leader stood firm. You can go to war in Ukraine, but not with my soldiers. And with that, she announced an immediate halt to all military aid and a full withdrawal of Italian forces in the region. But she's not alone. Hungary's Viktor Orban just made it clear. If the US leaves NATO, Hungary will too, because a partnership with Russia is better than a war with Russia. Poland has also shifted its stance, cutting ties with Ukraine and instead ramping up its own military for national defense. And then, the biggest move yet, Putin is proposing a new global alliance, one that includes the US and any nation that wants to break free from NATO's endless war cycle. Unlike NATO's Article 5, which forces every member into war when one is attacked, this alliance would let nations vote before committing troops. Slovakia has already signed on, and others may follow. This isn't about picking sides. This is about refusing to let endless war drain nations of their people, resources, and future. The US isn't siding with Russia, it's siding with peace. And now...
All right, the next one is, I think I'm going to call it a commercial. Oh no, this isn't the commercial.
He's a physical. I have no idea what's going on, but
if I'm gonna play it, wait until I get to the. Let me refresh it again. You have to wait because Instagram just plays.
I believe he's a physical. I have no idea what's going on, but I believe he said something to the crowd, and the police have arrested him. Oh wait, he's here with a Union Jack. No, guys, the optics of police arresting the guy with a Union Jack. Can I ask, sir, did you say anything? Yeah, I've moved back. I can still speak to your prisoner, though. Yeah.
Your prisoner.
But just think of the optics and the politics of this nation. You don't want to start a civil war arresting an Englishman for flying a Union Jack when there's people here literally.
So basically, he's at that Palestinian protests, and they're allowed to say anything that they want. And he is flying a Union Jack and gets arrested. It's a two-tiered. It's absolutely atrocious. Now, I don't know if this actually works or not, but Barry sent me this as a commercial break. I don't know if this is Amish or not, or maybe it's just...
I watched this. They said it's Amish. I think it's worldwide. I think people know this.
This looks like something...
Tomatoes that you can preserve in ash. I actually watched this earlier today. It showed up on my own Instagram.
Want not philosophy discovered something incredible. The gray, powdery leftovers from their wood stoves can keep tomatoes fresh for months without refrigeration. And the results? Shockingly effective. If you buried a batch of tomatoes in wood ash at the end of summer, they'd still be fresh by the time you're planning your next spring garden. That's longer than most store-bought tomatoes last. Here's how it works. The Amish take firm, unblemished tomatoes and place them in a container. Then they carefully layer them with clean, dry wood ash, almost like packing delicate treasures. Ash, tomatoes. More ash, more tomatoes. The key? Each tomato must be fully surrounded by ash, with no two touching. The ashes create an incredible protective barrier, blocking out air and moisture while preventing mold, rot, or bacteria from spoiling the fruit. No refrigeration, no chemicals. Just a centuries-old trick that keeps tomatoes fresh for months. Would you try?
I don't know. Well, maybe we'll try it. Mom and I did the silver trick and it worked. So I'm going to play a little bit of this. I'm trying to skip up one part that's kind of grotesque, but this is it's a parody on how it should have gone.
Should have gone.
With Zelensky and Trump.
Mr. Reagan.
That was yours. We thought that baggie belonged to Hunter. You know, I think the Secret Service probably still has it somewhere.
I have been stealing the money.
I'm sorry, what's that now?
I must to speak honestly. I steal many of USA dollars to Ukraine. Millions. Some dollars for some oligarchs also, some for American bureaucrats also.
Well, we know that, but why are you telling me this?
Because, Mr. Trump, if you end war, we cannot steal any more money. We must continue war.
No, the war must end. Convince me to keep this war going. You don't have the cards.
I not play cards.
No, I know you're not literally playing cards. It's a metaphor. It's like I'm playing 4D chess and you're playing checkers.
No, I not play checkers. There is no checkerboard, you see.
Okay, let's try this. I am in the driver's seat, okay? Do you understand that expression?
No, but we are not in car.
No, you're right. We're not in a car. That's true.
Listen, Mr. Trump, I am actor/comedian. I crave attention. Since start of war, I get worshipped by presidents. I'm worshipped by Hollywood. If war ends, no more attention, no more worship. With all due respect, Mr. Trump, this war must last forever.
I tell you what, if you agree to end this war, we will do a remake of Friends, and you can play Ukrainian Chandler Bing. How does that sound?
Oh, I love the Friends. This is favorite show of me. I am such a Monica.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's sign the thing, and then I'll go show you the room where Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky did it.
Oh yes, this is fun.
Sorry, towards the end. Thought we might. I didn't watch towards the end. So that was kind of a funny little way of. It was a good parody. Everybody knows. I would think everybody knows that he is a. He definitely wants to keep this war going before the grift. Now, what did J.D. Vance say?
Was I screen sharing?
Were you not?
I hope so.
What did J.D. Vance say about the UK soldiers that got everybody in a tizzy? I got this video here. Nigel Farage breaks his silence over J.D. Vance comments.
The Vice President, the Fox News interview, and the full-scale reaction here in Britain over what he did or didn't say. My name's Tom Harwood, and this is GBN Originals. Now, huge reaction back here in the UK after an explosive interview aired on Fox News. The Vice President, JD Vance, sat down with Sean Hannity to talk through the consequences of aid withdrawal to Ukraine and the possibility of peace. But it was one comment that has been posted to Twitter, quoted and analysed that has set British politics ablaze. That is, of course, the Vice President was talking about how peace could be guaranteed in Ukraine after any such peace agreement has been agreed. How might that be a sustainable peace, a lasting peace? In his view, the way that that is a sustainable peace is that you have American business interests in Ukraine. He called that the strongest possible security guarantee. If there are American businesses, American businessmen, indeed if there are American interests in extracting Ukraine's mineral wealth, well, then the Americans are going to want to protect that, whether or not there is a formal deal in place for military guarantees or not. That's the argument from the White House as things stand. But it was his next sentence that caused a real ruckus in the United Kingdom, because he said that a minerals deal, economic interests from the United States, offer a far greater security guarantee than some random country no one has ever heard of that hasn't fought in a war in 30 or 40 years, offering 20,000 troops. Now, in the UK, many politicians have taken those words to mean Britain and France. Why? They're the only two European countries that have publicly committed to sending troops to Ukraine to guarantee the peace in the event of a peace deal. They're the two military nuclear powers in Europe, the two largest spenders on the military in Europe, and indeed they have that strong connection going back in the past of working together. It's been London and Paris that have hosted the European summits, and indeed the proposals, as reported in the press, do focus around a 20,000 troop deployment, perhaps 10,000 from the United Kingdom and 10,000 from France at any one time, totaling that magic 20,000 number the Vice President referenced in his interview on Fox News. That's taken some commentators and many politicians to put two and two together and say that the countries that the Vice President was referring to were indeed Britain and France.
They're taking offense.
However, the Vice President has since come out to Twitter to say that is not the case, that he was not referring to Britain and France, despite what people thought. But is this a backtrack or what he thought all along? In a follow-up tweet, the Vice President said that he was referring to countries that may not have come public with their ideas about putting troops on the ground in Ukraine. Now, does he know things that we don't know? Perhaps. It could be the Americans know a lot more about these secret negotiations behind the scenes, and perhaps there has been a country that no one has ever heard of that has not been in a war in 30 or 40 years, that has committed troops to the ground in Europe coming to America's defence, not the other way round. And, of course, James Cartledge referred to what JD Vance had to say. He was talking about Britain.
OK, and I'm sure you've seen JD Vance's comments, the Vice President of the United States, seeming to suggest that we're just a random country that hasn't fought a war in 30, 40 years. Surely that is a massive insult to those who lost their lives in Afghanistan and Iraq.
JD Vance is wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. For 20 years in Afghanistan, pro rata, our size against America's, we spent the same amount of money, we put the same number of men and women in, and we suffered the same losses. We stood by America all through those 20 years, putting in exactly the same contribution. And all right, they may be 6 times bigger, but we did our bit. So on this one, JD is wrong.
And how much, just in terms of defence spending, how far would you go if you were in government? We're talking about 3% sort of down the line next Parliament. Is that enough if we're going to apparently have to do the heavy lifting?
Well, you know, if you look at the reform contract with the people last year, Starmer's now copied that, I'm pleased to say. But I think the real truth is the world is such a dangerous place. We're going to have to go further and faster. There's no question about it.
And how does it make you feel when Keir Starmer stands up in Parliament and says that you're fawning over Putin and that reform is fawning over Putin?
Well, it's absolutely ludicrous. I mean, you know, Putin visited this country in 2012 and went into Downing Street. A few years before that, the Labour government gave him a state visit with a white tie banquet at Buckingham Palace. You know, we have been totally opposed to what Putin has done from the very start. The only difference between me and the other party leaders over the last few years is they've been pro-war and I've been more realistic and been pro-peace.
Okay.
And just
so what do you think? Was J.D. Vance referring to the UK and France and their 20,000 troop, and did he just troop deployment? He did not really think about France.
I don't think so, and here's why. I'm going to be honest, and I'm not a fan of J.D. Vance, like at all. Okay. But for him to say some country that no one has ever heard of, we came from Britain, we came from the UK, like we came from England. So I don't think that I think he is kind of a dumb guy. I don't think he's that dumb. Like, and France, like, do you realize that both France and England were in existence before we were, right?
He's probably,
so you don't get to say he's not that stupid. Even for Nigel Farage to think, like, because here's the deal. Either he really means a country that no one has heard of, or it was a giant jab. And I've not seen any kind of relations between J.D. Vance and the UK and France to make him want to take that kind of a stance. Like, maybe you say it about China, maybe you say it about, you know, North Korea, maybe you say it about, I don't know, like Ukraine. You know what I mean? Like there's no motive. That's what I'm looking for. There's no motive for him to make such a jab by calling them a country that no one's heard of, when clearly they were here long before we ever existed. I just don't think he's that stupid, and I don't think he has any motive to make that kind of dig.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, well, the truth is nobody's fought a real war in the past 30, 40 years, not even the United States.
Yeah.
So we're just throwing all kinds of money at things, and it's just, we've made the world a worse place, truthfully. Any comments you want to read before we kind of round off the show here?
Let's see. Patriot Gallery is getting excited to go outside and plant some seeds and take a walk. Sherry says it's probably the media trying to stir up problems. I totally agree with that. She says it's almost like that here too. Pretty messed up when a country flags are an issue in the home country. Well said. Patriot Gallery put a link to her John Locke's Second Treaty of Civil Government that she's been posting every day. That's on Isaiah58ministries.blogspot.com. I highly encourage everyone to go and read those. It's a good way to get in your veggies. That's what I call it, your nutrition that you need. I really want everybody to go read that. Barry says it's deemed racist in the UK to fly the British flags in the UK, which is so ridiculous.
That's insane. That's insane.
Let me go over here and check on YouTube. You guys had some good comments earlier. I didn't get a chance to read them. So there was somebody, West, over on YouTube that was saying, Ireland has fallen. Please help us.
I know there's a lot coming out of Ireland. I meant to share some. Hopefully we'll discuss a little bit about Ireland next week. For sure.
All right. I think that's it.
All right. Mom mentioned the Tater brothers. I do have a video on that. We have UK Prime Minister says about the Andrew Tate, justice must be done, and pleased to see the leader of the Lib Dems, Edward Davey, asking the Prime Minister Keir Starmer about Andrew Tate with reference to our clients. This is a lawyer for those who have there's a criminal case and a civil case against the Tates, and will they be extradited to the UK is the question. Will Keir Starmer put any pressure on that? And I don't think Keir Starmer will. But
President Trump's reliability. 4 British women have accused Andrew Tate of rape and human trafficking, and British police have issued arrest warrants. The Tates have tried to escape justice, first to Romania, now to the United States, but I'm delighted that Florida has thankfully opened a criminal investigation. But does the Prime Minister agree that people who are wanted by British police of such appalling crimes should stand trial in our country? And given his assessment that President Trump really is a reliable ally, will his government request an urgent extradition of the Tate brothers?
Prime Minister.
This is a live issue, as he'll appreciate, and therefore I'll tread carefully. But the principle is absolutely clear. Justice must be done in all cases, including in this case. But I won't go into the details because this is a live case.
Likely excuse.
Meaning, I'm trying to keep my relationship with the United States on the up and up because everybody needs to.
I ain't telling y'all that I ain't going to ask for nothing.
Right.
That's what he meant to say.
All right. South Africa is on the edge of a socialist abyss. And this comes on the heels of I don't know the actual parameters of the asylum that is allowed to be, who's allowed, is it racially based asylum? South Africans can come to America, but they can.
140 race-based laws in South Africa, all anti-white. And 8 days ago, Cyril Ramaphosa, our president, signed into law, and just hear these 3 words, expropriation without compensation. And this is just the straw that broke the camel's back. There's been endless laws, anti-white, boiling us like a frog in a bowl. And all I can say is thank you, America, and thank you, Donald Trump, for taking notice, because we are on the edge of the socialist abyss.
So how do you guys get out of this? Obviously, there's a complex racial history there. How do you reverse some of this? I mean, that's an awful lot of laws, and
I don't think we can internally. We have to wait till the 2029 national election, and I don't think our economy will survive. It requires some external dynamic to change it. And I think Donald Trump and America taking notice and coming in swinging with a baseball bat may be that dynamic we need.
So when you saw over the last couple of years in America, wokeness infecting our systems, and suddenly we were focused on race, and we were putting it into, it was this very people who said we were systemically racist that were putting racism into the system in a systemic way, must have given you a little concern about the direction we're going, as much as that's now been rolled back.
Well, we've been infected in South Africa with the evil woke mind virus way more than in America. We've got it ×2. And there's no momentum in South Africa to reverse it. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
Wow, that's interesting.
That's crazy.
I would not have thought that about
so don't close that down.
The woke mind virus.
Yeah. No, not this one. Keep going. Just scroll down. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Now, I wanted you to see. There was another before that.
Can I go up one?
I don't know. Yours isn't. It's not the same one. Somebody's saying this is. I'm going to see it in a second. But go ahead and play the one.
Now it's gone. It's like refreshing itself.
Play that one.
Okay.
You're white. You don't look like me. You don't belong here. You know? Yeah, I know. You.
Yeah, they are not.
What do I need to know? I know my black brothers. Kill me if you can. Kill me if you can. Sell out. What? I don't care. They know you where you come from in Europe.
Kom eens weer. Kom eens weer.
My time. Hey, I am a Leeuwen. I don't care. Touch me. What do you want to do?
He's not going to
don't tell me about what you can or what you cannot do, or you can have traitors and everything else. What can you do? Do what you can.
I didn't say I'm going to do anything.
Yeah, so I don't care. I don't know you. That's why I'm surprised.
But we went.
Because, no, I don't know you. You're white.
We went to our own car. I don't understand your problem. Loop niet. Nou, kom niet. Loop niet. Ga niet. Jij gaat niet laten aangaan. Je moet op de wou komen.
I don't need DNA test. You are a foreigner to me.
Okay, congratulations. You know the meaning of foreigner.
So do what you can. Bring your bruiser for us.
So this is, and I want you to go back to my Twitter and just see what I just retweeted. But that's what it's like, I guess, for white people in South Africa. And this is Durban. Like,
for
how
the podcast
people,
listeners, it's just trash.
How do people, like...
Looks like a war zone.
How do you live like this? Like, this is what you want? This is what you want. You want all the white people gone. You want all their white businesses gone. You want all Western people gone, okay, fine. Who's going to clean your trash? Who's going to take care of your country? Who's going to take care of your cities? Like, clean things up. What's wrong with you people?
It just needs a bulldozer.
Jeez.
Like, oh my gosh. That's
oh
disgusting.
my gosh.
It looks like the aftermath of a looting.
I'm sure it was. Wow. Okay, last one I want to play. This is a young man in Canada. The state of Canada right now is just, people cannot survive.
They just raised my rent to almost 90% of my monthly income. I can't take it anymore. Is that it?
Yeah, so Canada's average asking rent jumped to almost $2,200 in February. A new report says the average asking price for a rental unit in Canada was $2,193 per month in February, making a 10% jump year over year, the fastest annual growth since September of 2023. The data released Monday by Rentals in Canada, which analyzes monthly listings from the Formers Network, shows the average monthly cost for a one-bedroom unit in February was about $2,000, up 12% from 2023. The average asking price for a two-bedroom was about $2,300, up 11%. The report says asking rents in Canada have increased overall by a total of 21%, or an average of $384 a month. That is a huge jump to go year over year, by the way, from 2 years ago, just before the start of the interest rate hikes by the Bank of Canada. Alberta maintained its status as the province with the fastest growing rents, with a total average of asking price of 20% annually last month of about $1,700. British Columbia and Ontario posted the slowest. On a municipal basis, the largest cities in those two provinces also remain the most expensive major cities to live in Canada for renters. The average asking price for one bedroom in Vancouver was $2,600. In Toronto, landlords were listing one bedroom units for $2,500. Traditional purpose-built rental apartments posted the fastest year over year. Condominium rentals, it's just it's hard to fathom. I know that here in America, everybody is struggling. If you are in a lady who's working at the dollar store, she lives in a house in a neighborhood kind of down the street from us, and I was thinking about somebody in her position trying to buy a house now. Nobody in our area. You could, if you had two incomes, even working at the dollar store, about 10 years ago, buy a house in some of these smaller neighborhoods in our neighborhood. Mm-hmm. You could do that. They're not uppity neighborhoods. They're small houses. A lot of them are
15 years ago, these houses went for maybe $85,000.
$85,000, maybe $90,000, and people could get small loans. I'm just my brain is just scanning some of the neighborhoods, and some of them more expensive. Or you could starting at $85,000 to $90,000 to $100,000, you could get a small little house, and then $150,000 you could get a more decent house. And like if you're willing to spend $200,000, you're in a very nice house, 3-4 bedroom house.
15 years ago.
Yeah. And since coronavirus just 5 years ago, rents have skyrocketed, not just here, but obviously there in Canada. I know that Canadians, I'm seeing them, Canadians are even in a more desperate position. I've seen a lot of them like hyperventilating. Like they're like, I can't make it. Some people, with medical issues are like, maybe I should have, assisted suicide. At the same time, you have a lot of people who are extremely wealthy buying new cars and new homes. And this is what we call a transfer of wealth. Okay. And this transfer of wealth happens with this illusion of fake money printing. And the elites are the people on your television. They're the people at the bank. They're the people who their wages are matching inflation and exceeding inflation, so they don't understand what's happening. And I feel for the millennials. I feel for those people, and it's like, I hate those. Just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just work hard, because you cannot, in this era that we are in right now, just work hard. Now you have to play the hustle. You have to play the game. And if you're not smart enough to play the game, if you're not cunning enough to play the game, if you aren't willing to sell your soul, like every day I hear people saying, I'm struggling to make it. I'm struggling to make it. I'm struggling to make it. And I know in Canada it's even worse, that they're not, it's just worse there in Canada. So I don't know what you guys are experiencing around the world. I know I see it in the comments. Every day I feel like, honestly, I'm going to be straight up honest. And I know it's not like a Holy Ghost thing in church. We're here. And maybe Michelle's going to round this up with a happy message for us. Every day I just feel like puking. I'm sick to my stomach. I don't think people are okay. I don't think people are making it. I don't think that the world is okay right now. And this is such a stark difference from even, I would say, the times of COVID. Even during COVID, people were making it that first 1 or 2 years. And we didn't recognize the snowball of things. And I think that when I hear Neil Oliver, because like his big thing is COVID and jabs and COVID and jabs and the lockdowns. But I don't hear a lot of people like I'm listening to Taylor Kennedy on IT and Trading, and I'm hearing Lynette, and I'm hearing Rafi Farber, and a lot of the economists and the Patriot economists are looking at it, and they are like, where are the stories? Like, I didn't see anybody at the State of the Union struggle with the struggle story of where they're at financially, and they can't do that because then you're going to ask the government to step in, right? So you can't do that, and you've got a lot of people who are, to be honest, I see both sides. You know, I have some friends who are doing extremely well, and I have a lot of people saying that they're struggling. So it's a dynamic between if you're in the tech business, if you are in, if you're doing computing, if you're doing code writing, you're doing fantastic because a lot of these, that's where everybody is headed. It's into the AI and that kind of realm. But if you're not in that, if you're just a working class person, and let's say that you could be making a decent income as a welder or something, and you're not living the same lifestyle that you were living 5 years before COVID, you're not able to get what you could, and it's compounded. I hear people all the time, I got to take on a second job, I got to take on a third job, I got to do more. So what do you have to say to round us off and give us some hope?
So, unfortunately, a lot of the videos that we see, like that young man, now, of course, I don't know his story.
No context.
I have no context. But I do know several stories like his, so allow me. In the system that we are in right now, that we've been in for the past 4 or 5 decades, we have encouraged young people to become independent. We make fun of people who still live with their parents. We make fun of people who aren't married. We make fun of people who do not operate, and I just did the video this week, we're weird, who do not operate according to the world's hamster wheel. And so I have some answers for you. I have some tips. I have some hope. We can't continue in that system anyway, inflation aside. And we should not want a society like that. All right. Our family best friend, one of them, has her 2 parents and her brother and her sister-in-law. She has a family home, but it's out in the country that could house all of them. And they could add some extra little houses for cheap on this land because she has 10 acres. And they could start doing all of the things. Now, they actually, it's been years in the making, are headed in that direction. Her brother and sister-in-law and their new baby are now headed up to move in with her parents because they want to have a second child and they cannot afford rent where they're at right now. They're renting a house. Oh, no, they bought one, but they still can't afford their mortgage. So their parents decided, we're just going to remodel the basement. We're going to put in a little kitchenette for my best friend's mom, and they're going to move in upstairs. Now, this isn't that far-fetched for their family because when my best friend Catherine was growing up, her grandmother lived in the basement of that same house. We have gotten away from multi-generational and multi-family living. Should everyone be as independent and all of these single people, like, I hear it from from young people all the time. I want to just grow up and I want to get an apartment and I want to be on my own. That is antithetical to the way that any society has ever lived from the beginning of time, especially young single women. It used to be that people stayed with their families until they could get their feet under them, until they had established themselves. But this idea that you have to just go be independent, that somehow makes you strong, that somehow makes you great. So I want to throw all of the caveats to the side. I understand many of you listening are going to tell me, Michelle, my wife and I don't have any family that we could take in. We don't have anybody. Okay, you are your own category. But most people, we have to shift the thinking, we have to shift the thinking from independence and living by yourself as being the thing that we seek after in society and that we praise. And we ought to start praising, admiring, and helping people to dwell with their families. Now I get it because of it's a not circular reasoning, but it is a circular happening where because we did this, your family broke down and now you can't stand your family and you think to yourself, I could never live with them in a million years. They're full of Satan. I get that. You probably shouldn't. But that doesn't change the immutable fact that it should be that families live together. So I want you to start praying and asking God. The Bible says something very clear. God places the solitary in families. He doesn't say he places the solitary in their own apartment so that they can pay $2,500 rent and make it so that that's affordable for them. That's not at all what he says. When he's talking about placing the solitaries in family, I go back to the Pilgrims. My favorite in all of history is the Pilgrims that landed in 1620 on my birthday. They landed on 1620 in Plymouth. Half of their people died. They had single people there that came by themselves, right? They had indentured servants that were going to pay off their passage in about 7 or 8 years. They had those people. But you know what? They didn't live in their own house. They didn't live in their own hut. Every single person got put with a family. And what's more, when half of the people died, almost immediately, marriages took place where they combined families, literal marriages, legal marriages, okay, where they combined these families. I can guarantee you that there was probably no emotion and love and passion between that marriage. It was strictly because we have to get this done. Now, don't go marrying somebody you're not supposed to marry. That's not what I'm saying. But my point is, God created community. He did not create your single personhood individuality that everybody seems to think that they have to have.
And to kick your kids out at 18 and be like,
because that's going to somehow make them strong or get into $100,000 debt. Like, I can't say emphatically enough on this program. You should not be sending your kids to college.
Yeah. But then what do? And you can't sit in your basement playing video games either. So that's why we encourage people to start farming, to start growing things, and to sum it up, like one of the things that the Taylors do, they don't have land, so they go work land. They go teach their kids how to do sheep and things. I want to end up. Mom says here in 1995, I saw the game and I played it. It works. I went up the ladder. Then in 98, 99, I took the money and got out of the system led by God's Holy Spirit. She also says legalized violence in South Africa. And then, let's see, I think it was, and Barry had said something about rents. The rent rise is awful, but the cost to tax a new 4x4 after April 1st for road tax, which is annually paid, is going to be £5,000 per year.
Wow.
To own a car?
Well, a 4x4.
Wow.
With four-wheel
Rent
drive.
is also going up because taxpayer-funded housing will pay more and more of our money in monthly rent. Working people can't compete.
The only answer is consolidation. I'm sorry. I know you don't like it. You need to pray about who God is called. If you are in those dire straits, okay, You need to, even if it's just temporary, you need to find who you can consolidate, because you're consolidating your electricity. You're consolidating, if you want to have cable and internet, we don't need cable, but if you want to have internet, you're consolidating these things. And that is the answer. I know that it's not popular, but that is the answer. And so many of you, like, to take care of your elderly parents seems completely, I don't want to do it. I could never do it. A lot of the elderly, not all of them, would like for you to move in and help take care of them. Okay. Maybe they're not at the nursing home stage, but it's like, but I can't stand my parents. You don't understand. I could never move in with my mom. I could never move in with my dad. We just don't get along. Start praying about it, because I've lived it. We moved in here in this home that we now own to take care of our grandmother, Patriot Gallery's mom, and the three of us together,
And our uncle.
and our uncle, took care of two people that were very hard, people that we thought we were never going to see again, because our relationship with them was done, over, finito. Never in a million years could I imagine moving in with these people. And then God worked a miracle. Now, I'm not saying that God is calling you to do that, because they're on the flip side, cut off abusive people, but God has an answer for you, and it's probably outside of the box. God doesn't want people struggling to pay rent and struggling to buy things. But I get it, guys. It's tough out there. It really, really is.
Barry says fiat money was actually made both independence and killed it because of greedy government and business policy and economic slavery, which has broken the nuclear families.
I got a message this week from a friend of mine from middle school and junior high. Hi, Stephanie. And I read your email. I haven't had a chance to respond to it. But Stephanie also moved in with her mom. And they are a multi-generational home now. Right, after her stepdad had passed away. It can be done. And I think Jewel on here. I'm pretty sure she, or Julie on here.
Wicked Sykes said 2 generations in my house.
Takes care, or not takes care of, but lives with her mom. There are a lot of our viewers, interestingly enough, that are already doing this. So take them as an example that it can and it should be done. That's the way that God wants us to live. It's awkward and it goes against everything, like in our modern American
on the independence,
flesh.
because one person wants to go over here and do this, and one person wants to go over here and do this, and you have to be led by the Holy Spirit and love.
Yeah, exactly. Be led by love. All right, so that's pretty much our show. But before we leave, we are still planning. I haven't heard anything from anybody yet, just being transparent and honest. But we are going to do this event in Arizona. Very excited about it. We have, I think, settled on a date, which would be Memorial Day, the end of May, Memorial Day weekend. So if you live in Arizona and you have a church or you have someplace that would like to host an event where we're going to be talking about homesteading and prepping and all the things that we need to be being prepared for because of economic collapse. It's just, things are just going to continue down a vein where it's going to be harder and harder. So right now is the time to be learning the skills that you need to be able to withstand what's coming, but also learning about gold and silver, God's money, learning about how the government should operate, God's government. We're going to combine all three of those aspects into an event, Lord willing, I should say. That is the plan, and we're super excited about it. But if we need to hear from our Arizonians and West Coastians, I just made that word up. So if you guys would like us to do this, which I truly do believe that we are led to do, and you have other podcasters that you know that live in that area that you think might want to be a part of it, please send me an email, massfaith33@gmail.com. You know the routine, but I did want to highlight one thing this week, which is Leah's Remineralize Me tooth powder and the Rise and Shine tooth polish. I am using these every single day, and my teeth feel amazing. And there's no feeling that can compare to knowing that what you're putting in your mouth and what you're brushing your teeth with is healthy for you. You don't recognize that the Crest that I grew up using. I don't know how many tubes of Crest we've used in our house, probably like 500, right? We grew up with all this stuff. You don't realize how bad it is for you. Your mouth is centric to the nutrition that goes into your body. And I am so excited about Leah's tooth polish and tooth powder. So I did want to highlight that this week. If you guys want to order those, you can go to shop.resistancechicks.com. What, did you have a comment you needed to read?
No.
You looked at me like you did. Shop.resistancechicks.com. I've got a couple orders that are going to be going out this weekend. We are, speaking of Canada, we are shipping to Canada. If you guys would like to have your country added to the list, let me know and I can do that. We can ship pretty much, I think, to any country in the world. I just have to figure out the shipping and then be able to add your country to the list. But right now we're shipping to the UK and to Canada. And I did send a package to Dr. Hyder in Puerto Rico. So I haven't added as an official country yet, but I totally can. So I think that's it for the show. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory. If it's actually the truth, God is doing something huge. God is on the move. Things are transitioning. Things are moving. Patriot Gallery is excited to go outside, plant seeds. I think Leah probably is too. You know, Leah's been feeling this heaviness. Maybe you're feeling this heaviness. I want to encourage you. Don't get disheartened because you're feeling it. Do something about it. Start praying in the spirit and ask God, where do my prayers need to be directed? And find yourself. I believe that we are truly in a birth pang moment. But if you didn't know that you were pregnant and you had those pains, you might think something was really, really wrong. And God would like to encourage you that we as the body of Christ are birthing something new, a transition where we don't have to have these struggles. And that is the most important thing of all. So we will see you guys. I don't know when. Leah's birthday is on Tuesday. I'm not sure if we're going to do it. We probably will do a show on Tuesday evening. We'll see, Lord willing. But we will have a Wednesday night Revelation Red Pill. And I think that at least little Leah will be back on Thursday for Revolutionary Revivalist. And of course, on Friday, we will be doing our regular news. Now, we have a show, an interview that we did with Dr. Syed Hyder. It's going to air. I'm not sure when. We may do it one night this week. I'm not really sure.
We may just air that on Tuesday for Healing for the Fractured Soul.
We might air it on Tuesday as a Healing for the Fractured Soul. We'll see. All right, we love you guys. Take care and have a wonderful and blessed rest of your Sunday. Don't forget to move your clocks forward if you live in the United States and pray that God ends that awful tyranny. Purim is this week. If you would like to celebrate that and do some research on it, I highly encourage it. I think it starts the 13th in the evening. So, all right. Take care, guys. God bless.